Chapter 515. Currently, their secret sect was in a state of rapid development. Every cultivator was diligently cultivating, and their strength was rapidly increasing. Of course, the consumption of resources was also rapidly increasing. Lei Xingfeng specifically searched the vicinity of the encampment several times and marked out the ore veins and various resources that he found. Then, he let the secret sect's cultivators excavate and harvest them. Wu Yang and Lei Xingfeng both confirmed that this was indeed a desert. The so-called desert was not a desert or the Gobi Desert. The plants here were still very lush, but the resources here were relatively scarce. Although there were some precious resources, they were relatively scarce. For example, the ore veins were very small. If it wasn't for Lei Xingfeng, these ore veins would have been very difficult to discover. Lei Xingfeng learned all kinds of restrictions and also learned how to purify various materials. Of course, he also found the answer to the 3 treasures that he found underground. However, he couldn't translate the names of these 3 items. Therefore, he called them heaven and earth spirit items. Natural spirit items were very rare and required special refining methods and control. According to his understanding, the golden sand-like spiritual object was a metal attribute spiritual object. Such a small pile of metal attribute spiritual objects was only the size of a millet. There were only a few hundred of them in the pile. They had a wide range of uses. They could be used to create the core of restrictions, strengthen metal attribute golden seals, and even be used to create sword seals. Each of them was extremely precious. The dark blue crystal was an ice spirit item, big cold crystal. Its use was similar to metal spirit items. It had a wide range of uses. There were only a few hundred of them. It was extremely useful for ice cultivators, especially high-level ice cultivators. As for the ball of flame, Lei Xingfeng knew from the records that it was more precious than big cold crystal and metal spirit items. This was because it was a spirit fire that would never extinguish. It was an innate fire spirit and was the best helper for fire cultivators. If a fire cultivator absorbed this spirit fire, their strength would rapidly soar. Lei Xingfeng also saw in the records that thunder cultivators also had spirit items. However, he had never seen one before. If he could obtain this spirit item, his cultivation would also soar. Lei Xingfeng also found a method to make the boxes that were used to store these spirit items. It was a restriction method that required a lot of special materials. Looking at the materials in his hand, he still lacked a lot. He would have to search for them in the future. Just from the stone carvings in the ruins, Lei Xingfeng had benefited a lot. His knowledge and skills had increased by a lot. Although Lei Xingfeng didn't specifically record thunder cultivation techniques, his knowledge level of thunder cultivation had greatly increased. At this time, Lei Xingfeng had a deep understanding of cultivation. The content recorded by the star python. Due to time constraints, Xian Feng only read the content he was interested in. There was also a portion that he only understood briefly. He had many things to do now and didn't have the time to study in seclusion. As long as Lei Xingfeng found the time, he would immerse himself in the Star of Thunder spirit items. He would study without sleep or food. Unfortunately, there was never enough time. Today, he was called to Wu Yang's place again. All the upper echelons of the secret sect were gathered in Wu Yang's reception hall. In the camp in the new continent, Wu Yang's house was the largest. There was also an additional reception hall for guests and meetings. Lei Xingfeng was the last to arrive. Wu Yang smiled and said, "Feng, come and sit with me." Lei Xingfeng didn't stand on ceremony. He sat beside Wu Yang, while Gucci sat on the other side. Now, the 3 of them were in charge of the secret sect. As for Thunderstorm and Gao Yi, although they were Heaven Monarch Realm experts, they were still guests and not the masters. As for La Zi, Bai Yuan, Xiao Chue, and the others, they were all elders of the secret sect. They didn't have much power. Wu Yang said, "I received news that the secret sect we went to this time was completely annihilated." No, 2 people escaped. The rest are all dead." Everyone's expression changed. Lei Xingfeng asked, "Which secret sect was it?" Wu Yang said, "A Feng should know one thing. It's the secret sect that likes to wear masks. Only 1 monarch and 1/8 ring sage escaped. The rest were annihilated, including their Dao monarch realm ancestor. Lei Xingfeng was shocked. Dao, a monarch realm ancestor? Their secret sect has a Dao monarch realm ancestor? Wu Yang said, "Don't be surprised. They didn't have one before. After entering the new continent, they advanced. Unfortunately, they were too arrogant and were annihilated. There's no hidden space here to hide." Feng Qinzong said, "How were they arrogant?" Wu Yang said, "Like us, they took over a sect by force." Everyone was speechless. Didn't that mean they were arrogant too? Wu Yang said, "What's different from us is that they took down that sect at the place where the sects gathered. Moreover, they didn't know beforehand that there was a super big sect behind this small sect, so it's normal for it to be destroyed." The masked man was already a distant memory of Exine Feng. At that time, he was a low-level practitioner who was searching for his grandpa and little sister everywhere, not knowing much about the outside world. Luckily, at that time in his hometown, the strongest secret doors were all hidden in the secret hidden spaces, and the strongest practitioners rarely appeared in his hometown, most of them going to other continents to find materials through the secret doors, which allowed him to pass through the most difficult period without any mishaps. In fact, the Masked Men was only a low-level organization attached to a secret sect. Even in that secret sect, they probably didn't have a very important position. Lei Xingfeng sighed. "It seems like the large sects here can easily suppress us." Gao Yi said, "If the secret sects didn't split up and form a large secret sect, we could probably compete with the large sects here." Lei Xingfeng shook his head. "That's impossible. These secret sects all have their own centers. Even if we forced them together, it wouldn't work." Wu Yang agreed. "And they're basically a plate of loose sand. It's better for us to fight on our own. We can't be too careful." Regardless of whether the masked men were enemies or not, everyone felt the same way. This was a foreign land, and the feeling was completely different from their home. Gucci said, "We need to increase our strength as soon as possible. We're too weak to fight the people here. Luckily, we still have the Mirror Realm. If we didn't, we'd meet a strong enemy and end up in the same situation." Wu Yang smiled. "It's not that serious. It depends on our strength. Of course, the others have to work hard too. The more power you have, the more stability you have." Lei Xingfeng asked, "Is there any other news?" Wu Yang said, "That was the bad news. Now, there's another news that's neither good nor bad." Everyone looked at Wu Yang curiously. Thunderstorm said, "Is it news from other secret sects?" Wu Yang said, "No, it's news about the continent. To be precise, it's news about the continent's geography." Thunderstorm said, "Oh, what's there to pay attention to?" Wu Yang said, "It's really important. We're at the edge of the extraterritorial starry sky. The extraterritorial starry sky is like a giant tortoise, and we're at the tail of the tortoise. It's such a small place, but there are thousands of continents. Think about it. If we're on the back of the tortoise, how big would it be? How many continents would there be? It's said that the best place with the most resources is on the top of the mountain. There should be countless experts there." Everyone was dumbfounded. What was this? How strong were these cultivators? How big was the extraterritorial starry sky? How many cultivators were there? Seeing that everyone was shocked speechless, Wu Yang nodded in satisfaction. He said, "I don't know how many years it'll take for us to reach the center of the extraterritorial starry sky. However, I'm confident that as long as we work hard, we'll be able to reach the center of the extraterritorial starry sky one day. We might even be able to reach the most resource-rich region of the extraterritorial starry sky." Lei Xingfeng's expression changed when he heard the word extraterritorial starry sky. He tried his best to hold back his laughter and said, "Patriarch, is there any other good news?" Wu Yang said, "Why should it be good news?" Lei Xingfeng said, "There's bad news, and also news that's neither good nor bad. Then, there must be good news, right?" Wu Yang nodded. "There is indeed good news, but it has nothing to do with us. I heard that another Dao Lord Patriarch has advanced." Instantly, everyone sighed. This was indeed good news, but it had nothing to do with them. Wu Yang said with a smile, "I see that everyone is not very interested, but do you know? In our hometown, it takes a long time for a Dao Lord Patriarch to advance. This means that this place is more suitable for cultivation. This should have something to do with everyone. Ha! Lei Xingfeng thought about it and agreed. As far as he knew, Dao Lord Patriarchs had reached the limit in his hometown. After so many years, no one had advanced. However, ever since entering the extraterritorial starry sky, especially after passing through the sky bridge and entering the inner continent of the extraterritorial starry sky, Dao Lord Patriarchs had advanced in such a short time. In addition, in his secret sect, a group of people had advanced in the last lecture. This was not only due to his lectures, but also because the environment here was more suitable for cultivation. Lei Xingfeng said, "In that case, we should arrange for more people to cultivate here. It's much better than cultivating in the mirror realm." Wu Yang nodded. Yes, this news inspired us to let cultivators stay on this continent more often. Gucci said, "Master, should we continue moving forward?" Wu Yang said, "Of course. Otherwise, how can we find more advanced cultivation techniques?" Lei Xingfeng said with a smile, "That's not necessarily true." Wu Yang asked curiously, "What do you mean?" Chapter 516. Lei Xingfeng grinned and said, "Let's wait a few days." He had already decided to disclose the newly obtained information to the higher-ups of the hidden sect. This was very important to the development of the entire hidden sect. It was the best way to increase the strength of the hidden sect. Wu Yang laughed and scolded, "Little brat, what are you up to now?" Lei Xingfeng grinned and did not answer. However, the higher-ups all knew that Lei Xingfeng must have obtained something good. It was just that this was not the right time to announce it. Over the years, Lei Xingfeng had found too many treasures. This was not because the others were incompetent, but because Lei Xingfeng's eyes were too powerful. With these strange eyes, he had discovered countless treasures. From various materials, mineral veins, and treasures from various ruins, one was worth 100. This allowed the hidden sect to develop and grow. This also made the higher-ups of the hidden sect confident in him. Wu Yang said, "Since a phone doesn't agree to go immediately, then let's stabilize our home first. After a while, we'll go again. Also, we have to send people to the other two bases frequently. The ordinary people have to rotate as well. After all, there is a certain amount of danger in the other bases. As long as the ordinary people get married, they can rest for a period of time, especially if they have children." Lei Xingfeng said, "That's right. We lack a foundation now. The ordinary people need a lot of support. The larger the population, the more people can cultivate. Therefore, the safety of the two bases must be guaranteed. The safety of the ordinary people must be guaranteed." The hidden sect had a total of 3 bases. In addition to the mirror realm, they needed people to guard them. As for the 2 production bases, they needed a lot of ordinary people. The mirror realm also needed a lot of people to produce and cultivate. There was also a cultivation garden for herbs and spirit grass. There were also special breeding farms. These all needed to be rearranged. The people in charge and the various tasks were all arranged by Wu Yang and the others. Due to the fear of the lack of food when they came over from the sky bridge, Wu Yang and the others attached great importance to the 2 production bases. A large number of ordinary people were arranged to enter the 2 bases. They also sent practitioners to guard the bases. The most powerful experts were mostly in the New World because the conditions for cultivation here were too good. For some reason, once they started cultivating, their progress would be very fast. For this reason, Lei Xingfeng arranged for Lei Xingyao, Jean Dia, Tiger Love, Mad Eagle, and Jean Depang to come over. Of course, other than Lei Xingfeng, Thunderstorm, and Gao Yi, the 3 of them had better places to cultivate. 2 of them were in the Magnetic Storm Mountains, while the other one was in the Ice Palace. According to Lei Xingfeng's own experiments, even if there was no thunderstorm here, the speed of cultivation would still be very fast. However, compared to the Magnetic Storm Mountains, the speed of cultivation here couldn't be compared. The speed of cultivation in the Magnetic Storm Mountains was terrifying. However, there were also disadvantages. After cultivating in the Magnetic Storm Mountains for a period of time, he had to rest for a period of time. If he stayed in the Magnetic Storm Mountains for a long time, the effect would be greatly reduced. This was also the reason why he would only go to the magnetic storm mountains after a period of time. Going too far was as bad as falling short. After Wu Yang finished his arrangements, he dismissed everyone. However, he kept Lei Xingfeng and Gucci. Lei Xingfeng sat there with a smile. He knew what Wu Yang wanted. Wu Yang said, "Why don't you go to the center of the new world? Now you can tell me the reason." Lei Xingfeng said, "I got some good stuff." As he spoke, he took out 2 identical pages of the Star Python record and handed them to Wu Yang and Gucci. He said, "It's a very ancient cultivation method. There are also some restrictions and methods to purify and refine materials." He didn't give them all the information he had. He only gave them a part of it, especially the part that would be very helpful to the secret door. Wu Yang and Gucci calmed down and carefully read it. Wu Yang said, "Oh, it's actually ancient characters." "Interesting. It's indeed very ancient." Lei Xingfeng smiled bitterly. It seemed that he was the only one who didn't recognize the ancient characters. It seemed that everyone else did. After that, the two didn't speak. Their minds were completely immersed in the Star Python record. Their faces were filled with surprise and joy. They quickly browsed through the record. The Star Python record was constantly changing text and graphics. Although Lei Xingfeng had only selected a part of the content, the amount of information he had was still very large. Lei Xingfeng quietly got up and left. He knew that once the two were immersed, they wouldn't talk to him unless they had a certain amount of time. He returned to his home, the new camp, and built a courtyard similar to the one in the Mirror Realm. In the front courtyard, Thunderstorm, Gao Yi, Jean Dia, and the others were all sitting and chatting. Lei Xingfeng happily sat on a chair in the wooden shed and said, "What are you talking about?" Thunderstorm said, "We're talking about ancient cultivation methods." Lei Xingfeng said, "Has it been distributed?" Thunderstorm nodded and said, "Yes, I just distributed a few ancient cultivation methods. Although we can't directly cultivate these methods, it can give everyone a good idea. Especially the ancient cultivation methods. They can let people understand a lot of the basic principles of cultivation. This will be very helpful to everyone." Lei Xingfeng said, "After you guys advance, I'll give you the ancient cultivation methods to advance." Jean Dia sighed inwardly. If he had come to the continent in outer space earlier, perhaps it would have been completely different. His potential had almost been completely exhausted. Even the best cultivation method wouldn't be able to help him advance. On the other hand, Tiger Love and Mad Eagle still had a sliver of hope. If they cultivated seriously, perhaps there was still hope for them to advance. Lei Xingfeng said, "I'm going to redesign the restriction circle. Yes, everyone come together. While I'm setting it up, you guys can also use this opportunity to learn." Jean Dia and the others nodded. Gao Yi said excitedly, "Oh, what kind of restriction are you using?" Lei Xingfeng smiled and said, "It's an ancient restriction. Uncle Gao probably hasn't seen it before." Thunderstorm smiled and stood up. He said, "I'll go back first to set up the restriction circle. I won't be going." He was also busy learning new skills. With a large group of 8th and 9th ring sages and a few monarchs, Lei Xingfeng began to redesign the restriction circle. This time, not only was it useful for defense, but it also had the ability to counterattack. This matter also alarmed Wu Yang and Gucci. The two of them also rushed over. If they could strengthen the camp security, of course they would support unconditionally. Lei Xingfeng provided a portion of the refining materials. Wu Yang and Gucci also provided a portion of the materials. The last portion was taken from the secret sect's warehouse. From the purification of the materials to the creation of the restriction circle, Lei Xingfeng explained step by step and set up the restriction circle step by step. This restriction circle was one of the few restriction circles that were specially used by sections. There were thousands of restrictions recorded in ancient records. This was a relatively simple restriction circle. Every cultivator recorded and learned seriously. Lei Xingfeng found that he actually enjoyed it. This was a very fun job. As he guided and explored, Lei Xingfeng also felt that it was funny because he himself did not fully grasp it. He was just following the instructions. After the purification of the materials was completed, Lei Xingfeng began to refine some of the items needed for the restriction circle. This included metals, wood, special stones, and some star beast blood. Of course, these items could not be compared to spiritual items. However, one of them was still very precious, and that was thunder plasma. He used it as a means of attack. Although thunder plasma was not as powerful as spiritual items, it was also a consumable. Once the defensive restriction circle was activated, the thunder plasma would gradually be consumed. This was something that could not be helped. Lei Xingfeng could not use the 3 treasured spiritual items in his hands at all. It involved extremely profound restriction studies. He could only use thunder plasma as a substitute. The location of the control center had to be kept a secret. Therefore, he asked everyone to leave first. They would only be allowed to return after a few hours. Lei Xingfeng found half a rock exposed from the ground and secretly set up the control center there. After setting up the control center, he called everyone back. Lei Xingfeng continued to explain and set up the restriction circle. Lei Xingfeng did not remove the extremely simple restriction circle that he set up earlier. Instead, he set up a new restriction circle within this restriction circle. The current restriction circle was much more complicated. From the purification of the materials, to the refinement of the restriction objects, to the setting up of the restriction center, and finally, to the formation, Lei Xingfeng spent 2 days. To Lei Xingfeng, setting up the restriction circle was equivalent to putting it into practice after learning it. His understanding of restrictions had also increased by a lot. Although he was clumsy at the beginning, he soon became proficient. The setting up of a restriction circle was not too difficult. After all, he was just drawing a ladle from a bottle gourd. There was nothing for him to think about and improve on. Even if he wanted to improve, he did not know where to start as his foundation was still far from strong enough. In the restriction center, Lei Xingfeng buried 2 large bottles of thunder plasma. Once the restriction was triggered, these thunder plasma would turn into lightning and attack directly. The lightning attack was not only powerful, but it was also extremely fast. Once it was used on a restriction, the entire restriction's power would be stronger than ordinary restrictions. Of course, if there were no thunder-type phase, it would still not be as powerful as the 3 phase that he had previously obtained. Previously, when he broke the restriction Ancient Array, it could be considered Lei Xingfeng's luck. Firstly, he was able to find the restriction center. Secondly, because it had been a long time, most of the energy had been consumed. The remaining energy was not enough to create a sure kill situation. This gave Lei Xingfeng the opportunity to obtain the 3 phase. These 3 phase had already become Lei Xingfeng's hidden treasures. Unless it was absolutely necessary, he would not reveal them. On the 3rd day, Lei Xingfeng inspected the restriction circle. He used a few steel mannequins to attack the restriction circle. In an instant, a few powerful lightning bolts appeared out of nowhere and turned the steel mannequins into molten iron slag. The speed was so fast that Lei Xingfeng did not even have time to react. He was immediately very satisfied. Wu Yang and Gucci also came to watch during the inspection. When they saw the power of the lightning bolts, both of them were pleasantly surprised. This meant that the camp was safe. Chapter 517. Ever since they discovered the underground stone pillars, Lei Xingfeng often brought the black bird to wander around the ruins. The ruins were quite large, and only a small part of the camp's restriction circle was cut. Most of the other parts were outside the restriction circle. Lei Xingfeng always felt that there should be more treasures in the ruins. Therefore, in his free time, he often brought the blackbird to the ruins. Regretfully, Exine Feng didn't find anything else of value, but he did find something. This ruin was extremely ancient. He even felt that before the practitioners of the Great Forbidden Land migrated, this sect had already turned into ruins. Thus, he treasured the information he obtained even more. This was true ancient training information, many of which had already been lost to time. Slowly, Exine Feng started to get used to strolling around the ruins. Of course, there were many people in the secret sect who liked to stroll around the ruins. No matter if they found something or not, the ruins had a unique sense of vicissitudes of history that made people sigh with emotion. Because the ruins were huge, even though Lei Xingfeng often came, there were still many places that he didn't have time to visit. The entire ruins covered a radius of 100 kilometers. It was a very large area. Many places were covered by dense trees and weeds. If one didn't pay attention, they wouldn't even know that this was a part of the ruins. On this day, Lei Xingfeng was reading the star python records in the camp. Someone came to report that they found a special place. However, because the person who found it was a low-level cultivator, he didn't dare to act rashly and reported it. Lei Xingfeng immediately set off and quickly flew to the destination. The upper echelons of the secret sect were all gathered there. Lei Xingfeng rushed over and asked, "Ancestor, what is it?" Wu Yang said, "I don't know yet. However, it's very strange. Every once in a while, there will be a faint sound from underground. We're all waiting and listening to the sound below." A young man with one true ring stood very nervously. He was the one who found the abnormality here. There should have been a building here. Now, the building on the ground had completely disappeared. Only a bluestone ground was left. It wasn't very big, only about 100 square meters. There were vines all over the ground, but they had already been cleared. Everyone was standing on the bluestone ground. About half an hour later, a series of soft noises suddenly came from underground. Everyone listened attentively. After a while, Lei Xingfeng said, "It sounds like a bug, or maybe a bug is flying." This sound was very similar to the sound of mosquitoes in his previous life, when they suddenly flew past one's ear. Wu Yang said, "What a strange sound. I don't think it's an insect, but more like, well, how should I put it, like the sound of wood being sawed." At this time, Xi and Yao ran over. She saw Lei Xingfeng and hurried to his side. She grabbed his arm and giggled. "Brother, what did you find?" Lei Xingfeng shook his head and said, "I don't know. There was a sound coming from below. I don't know what it is." There were all kinds of explanations. Some said that it was like a flying insect. Some said that it was the sound of a moving object, and some said that it was the sound of a humanoid beast. There were all kinds of speculations, and all of them had uncertain expressions on their faces. Chu Zi said in a low, muffled voice, "Who cares what it is? Once we open it, we'll see everything. No matter how we guess, we won't be able to guess." Everyone immediately laughed. Chu Zi was speaking the truth. No matter how they guessed, it was better to see with their own eyes. Wu Yang said, "Okay, everyone back off. I'll grab the green stone and see what's underneath." Everyone retreated out of the green stone. Lei Xingfeng also pulled Xi and Yao away and said, "Let's see how our ancestor grabs the ground." Xi and Yao asked curiously, "What kind of treasure is it?" Lei Xingfeng shook his head and said, "I don't know." Wu Yang grabbed downwards. A large illusory hand directly pierced into the green stone. With a flip of his hand, the entire green stone was grabbed and thrown to the side. With a few loud bangs, an extremely small stone house was revealed underneath the green stone. This stone house was only a few square meters big. A black metal box was placed in the middle of the stone house. It was about 2 feet tall and 1 foot long. At this moment, everyone could clearly hear that the sound was coming from the metal box. Therefore, everyone thought that it was a treasure, but it was hard to say what kind of treasure it was. Wu Yang, Guqi, and Gao Yi all jumped in. Lei Xingfeng also jumped in. Because Xi and Yao was holding onto Lei Xingfeng's arm, she also jumped in. The others didn't dare to go up. They were all high-ranking members of the secret sect. They only surrounded the surroundings and looked down. Wu Yang looked up and down at the cuboid. There were dots of metallic light within the black color. The original color of the cuboid shouldn't have been like this. After a long time, the cuboid had lost its original metallic light. A layer of material had condensed on the surface, covering the metallic light. Lei Xingfeng's eyes flickered with silver light. He immediately discovered that the cuboid was sealed. Of course, this seal was targeted at the cuboid itself. People outside could touch it. Wu Yang reached out and touched it. It should be a box. The sound came from inside the box. Before he finished speaking, a sound was heard. This time, everyone understood. It was the sound of friction and scratching. It was very clear. In other words, there's a living thing inside the metal box. Wu Yang reached out and tried to open the lid. He used all his strength, but couldn't open it. The entire metal box was like a single piece. He couldn't open it at all. He said, "Huh? Why can't I open it? Of course, he wasn't stupid enough to use brute force to open it. Lei Xingfeng smiled. It's sealed. Of course, it can't be opened. Gucci said, a phone. Do you understand? Then let's open the seal. Lei Xingfeng shook his head. If the seal is opened, the thing inside will probably escape. Who knows what it is? If it escapes, it won't be worth it. Gao Yi said, then what should we do? Set up another seal? Lei Xingfeng clapped. That's right. We need to set up another seal. Yes, there are too many people here. Let's move the box to the Grandmaster's reception hall. Wu Yang said, okay. He lifted the metal box and said, let's go back. Everyone else, disperse. The group went back in high spirits and entered Wu Yang's reception hall together. The other cultivators dispersed. Even if they were curious, they didn't dare to disobey Wu Yang's orders. A few of the hidden sect's higher-ups surrounded the metal box and sized it up. This metal box was placed in the middle of the living room, and from time to time, there would be noises coming from it. Lei Xingfeng quickly set up a small seal around the box. This seal was a little different from the one on the metal box, but its function was the same. It sealed off the space around the box. Even if the metal box was opened, the thing inside would not be able to escape. This seal was learned from the records in the underground database. It wasn't complicated, but it was very effective. Wu Yang smiled. Open the seal. I'm dying of curiosity. I wonder what's inside. Gao Yi said, I hope it's not a star beast. As soon as he said this, everyone's expression changed. It had to be known that ancient cultivators had the ability to seal star beasts in a very small place. Once the seal was opened, that thing would rapidly expand. If that was the case, then there would be a lot of fun. Wu Yang said, impossible. It can't be a star beast. Actually, Lei Xingfeng also understood that there couldn't be a star beast here. Otherwise, the movements inside wouldn't be like this. He smiled. I'm just saying. Of course, it can't be a star beast. Gao Yi couldn't help but want to beat someone up. He said, will you die if you don't scare people? A phone, if it's a star beast, you'll be the first to die. Gucci couldn't help but curse. Little brat, you only know how to talk nonsense. Lei Xingfeng smiled apologetically. I'm just having fun. Lei Xingyao laughed. She felt that her brother's predicament was very amusing. Wu Yang said, all right, stop talking nonsense. Open the seal. The seal only had 4 nodes. If any node was broken, the seal would completely disappear. Moreover, Lei Xingfeng also saw clearly that the seal was about to lose its effect. It couldn't stop the sound from coming out. If another 10 years passed, the thing inside would be able to come out on its own. A long arc of electricity shot out and hit a point at the bottom of the metal box. With a kacha sound, the metal box suddenly split open. A green light flew out with a cry of pain. Wah, it hurts, it hurts. Before the crowd could see clearly, another green light flashed. The thing scuttled to the other side. With a bow sound, the seal bounced it back. Another cry. Woo-woo. It hurts, woo-woo. Then the crowd saw clearly what it was. It was a white and tender little person. It was only the size of a palm. Both of its hands were covering its chest. There was a circle of tiny green leaves around its crotch. After Lei Xingyao saw the little person clearly, her eyes couldn't help but shine. Wow, wow, what a cute little girl. Lei Xingfeng and the others were all stunned. What was this, an outsider? How could there be such a small person that could fly as fast as lightning? This thing was actually a human? That little person saw everyone's gaze and became even more terrified. Like a headless fly, she flew around randomly. However, she was completely surrounded by the seal. She couldn't escape at all. Then he heard the little person shouting incessantly, Ayaya, it hurts. She slammed her head against the restriction back and forth until she was dizzy. She stumbled around in the air as if she was drunk, flying around in a disorderly manner. Wu Yang, Gucci, Gao Yi, Lei Xingfeng, and Lei Xingyao were all dumbstruck. For a moment, no one knew what to say. Lei Xingfeng's eyes flashed. He suddenly remembered the records in the database. He didn't remember it clearly, but he knew that he had seen it before. After thinking carefully, he finally knew what it was. A wood-attributed medicine spirit that had turned into a human form. Wu Yang, Gucci, Gao Yi, and Lei Xingyao didn't know what it was. Wu Yang asked, "What's the use of this thing?" Gao Yi licked his lips and said, "Maybe it could be eaten?" This sentence scared the little person even more. She shrieked, "Wah! The monster wants to eat people. Woo woo, so scary. Woo woo." Lei Xingfeng couldn't help but laugh. This medicine spirit was probably very naive and didn't know about the outside world. Chapter 518. Wu Yang said, "Oh, can this little person be eaten?" Gao Yi laughed and said, "I'm just joking. Such a small person can't even be swallowed in one bite." Yao Ling cried out in shock, "Save me! Who can save me? Ying, the monster wants to eat me. Ying, I'm scared to death. So scary, Ying." Xian Yao hurriedly said, "Don't be scared, don't be scared. Come to sister." She had a natural feeling of intimacy. This Yao Ling was of the wood attribute, and towards the wood attribute Xian Yao had a natural feeling. Only Yao Ling was truly scared. Even if she had a sense of intimacy, she did not dare to go near. She knew that she could not run out, so she could only hide in a corner and tremble. Although she was only the size of a palm, her appearance was extremely delicate. Her voice was soft yet clear. Gao Yi said, "Come here." Yao Ling shrieked, "No. Ying, such a scary monster." Everyone could not help but laugh. Actually, Gao Yi's appearance could not be considered ugly. He was just a bit old, but in Yao Ling's mouth, he was a monster. Gao Yi said, "You're looking for death." As he spoke, he stepped forward, scaring Yao Ling into another corner. She said softly, "Don't come up. So annoying, Ying." The more Xian Yao looked, the more she liked her. She said, "Don't be scared. Come to me. Sister will protect you." Although she did not stop talking, she did not go forward, afraid of scaring this little person. Yao Ling's senses were extremely sensitive. She had a good impression of Xian Yao, and she felt a bit at ease, so she frequently looked at Xian Yao. But she was hesitant. The people here were all so scary, she could only tremble, her mouth muttering, "So unlucky, Ying. Why are there so many big monsters? So scary, Ying." Xian Feng continuously searched his memories for any information regarding medicine spirits. The formation of this thing was extremely difficult. It was a legendary spirit treasure. It was said that countless precious spirit grasses were used to nurture it, and after hundreds of thousands of years, it was barely formed. If it had intelligence, who knew how long it would take? Wu Yang and the others knew that this thing should be very precious, so they didn't dare to touch it carelessly. They didn't even dare to lay their hands on it, for fear of killing this treasure. This little person looked too weak. Don't even talk about grabbing him. If he used a little more strength, he would probably crush him to death. Because of this, no one dared to make a move. Gao Yi was just putting on an act. For a moment, both sides were frozen. Yao Ling had nowhere to run, and the others did not dare to grab him. Only Xian Yao kept calling her gently, hoping that she would come to her side. Yao Ling trembled as she looked at the crowd. She seemed to have understood something, as if she knew that the crowd would not make a move. Following the restriction, she moved her legs and knocked on the restriction, trying to find a flaw. She muttered, "I'm trapped again. Woo, so unlucky. Woo, give me a crack so that I can get out. Woo." Lei Xingfeng was amused by her muttering and laughed out loud. Yao Ling raised her small head and saw Lei Xingfeng laughing. She couldn't help but get angry and said, "Bad guy, you're laughing so evilly. Woo." Xian Yao looked at Lei Xingfeng's speechless appearance and couldn't help but laugh. She said, "Brother, you're being looked down upon, hee hee." Lei Xingfeng said, "Yao Yao, release your wooden seal." Xian Yao shook her head and said, "No, I won't make a move on her. Such a cute little person, I can't bear to make a move on her." Lei Xingfeng smiled bitterly. "Am I that kind of person? Release your wooden seal. I'm not asking you to attack." Xian Yao thought for a moment and said, "Okay." Whether she attacked or not was up to her. Although she didn't know what Lei Xingfeng meant by releasing her wooden seal, she believed in her brother, so she released her wooden seal. The wooden seal was dark green in color and was only the size of fist. It was different from Lei Xingfeng's Leiyin. This wooden seal was filled with a gentle power. On the wooden seal, one could vaguely see the shadow of a green plant. Layers of green, rushed towards one's face. That was an exuberant life force. The medicine spirit suddenly saw the wooden seal and could not help but let out a squeak. Woo-woo. What a strange feeling. Woo-woo, I like it so much. This attraction was simply too strong. The medicine spirit's body that was originally trembling from fear after seeing the wooden seal actually stopped trembling. Xiao! In an instant, Yao Ling rushed to the wooden seal and hugged it. She lowered her small head and used her small mouth to kiss the wooden seal. Everyone held their breath. At this time, Yao Ling was obviously intoxicated. Hearing her babbling and crying, she couldn't wait to swallow the wooden seal into her stomach. Xian Yao's eyes flashed, and she suddenly understood. She stretched out her hand, and the wooden seal emitted a faint green light. Yao Ling cried out twice and disappeared. Wu Yang said in surprise, "Where's that little thing?" Xian Yao giggled. Hee, entered the wooden seal? Hee, it's fun. As she spoke, the wooden seal suddenly retracted into her body. Then Lei Xingfeng's entire body emitted a faint green light. Lei Xingfeng was pleasantly surprised and said softly, "Ancestor, Yao Yao is about to level up. Everyone help protect her." Wu Yang and the others were stunned. She was about to level up. Could it be that it was the little person's work? Gao Yi said softly, "What is that little person?" Lei Xingfeng said, "If I didn't guess wrong, it should be Yao Ling. However, I also don't know why Yao Yao would level up after entering the wooden seal." Gucci said, "I'll go outside and call for people to guard the door. Don't let anyone disturb her." As he spoke, he hurriedly left. Lei Xingfeng naturally waited at the side, watching Xian Yao's aura increase bit by bit. Her body flashed with a green light, and an illusion appeared. This wasn't the illusion of Xian Yao's body, but a strange tree. At first, it couldn't be seen clearly. This tree branch was tall and straight, only as thick as a bowl. The branches and leaves on it were dense, giving people a graceful feeling. Soon, the tree began to become clear. The tree trunk had emerald green bark, just like jade, and the leaves were light yellow. It was like a willow tree that had just sprouted in spring. It was extremely delicate. Then, Lei Xingfeng and the others saw a shocking scene. A little person sat on the tree branch. His mouth opened and closed as if he was saying something, but no sound came out. Suddenly, Xian Yao's aura skyrocketed, and she instantly became a primary monarch. Then, she saw that the tree was also growing. The jade-green tree trunk began to thicken bit by bit. The light yellow leaves gradually turned tender green, then green, and finally dark green. Lei Xinyao continued to level up until she reached the peak of true monarch realm. Lei Xingfeng let out a long breath and said, "What a pity! What a pity!" Wu Yang rolled his eyes and said, "What a pity! You've already reached the peak of monarch. What else do you want? Don't you feel that it's a pity to level up to monarch?" Lei Xingfeng couldn't help but laugh awkwardly. This was exactly what he wanted. He couldn't wait for Xian Yao to level up to monarch. Then, all three of them would be monarchs. Gao Yi kept shaking his head and said, "Feng, don't be too greedy. How many people can encounter such an opportunity?" Yao Ling was a wood elemental treasure. If any wood elemental cultivator was recognized by Yao Ling, their cultivation would increase by leaps and bounds. If they had a solid foundation, excellent cultivation techniques, and great potential, they would be able to level up continuously. However, it was very difficult to get the approval of the medicine spirit. Moreover, the medicine spirit was too hard to get, and it was impossible to get it. This time, in the restriction circle, no one else had the chance to get the medicine spirit. Other than Lei Xian Yao, no one else had the wood attribute, so this advantage was given to Lei Xian Yao. Yao Ling sat on the tree branch. Her two legs hung down, and she kicked them back and forth. Her face was no longer nervous and trembling. She looked happy and content. Yao Ling waved her small arms from time to time. Then, countless tiny green light spots were sprinkled from her small hands and merged into the tree. Lei Xingfeng looked at Yao Ling with pity. He didn't know what Yao Ling was saying. Every time she sprinkled a green light spot, Yao Ling's mouth wouldn't stop talking. This time, Xian Yao took 7 days to level up. On the first day, she reached the peak of monarch. However, She took 6 days to consolidate her cultivation. This was with the help of Yao Ling. The main reason was that Xian Yao wasn't prepared. If she was, it wouldn't be hard for her to level up to Heaven Monarch. However, once the opportunity was lost, she could only wait for another chance. Luckily, with Yao Ling, Xian Yao's cultivation wouldn't be a big problem. Spirit items were definitely priceless treasures to cultivators. Xian Yao was the luckiest person to come with Lei Xingfeng to watch the show. This spirit item that was alive and had intelligence was much higher level than the 3 spirit items that Lei Xingfeng got. Lei Xingfeng's spirit items didn't have any intelligence. They had spirituality, but they didn't reach the level of Yao Ling. Perhaps in a suitable environment, after tens of thousands of years or hundreds of thousands of years, they could form a certain level of intelligence. However, if they wanted to speak like Yao Ling, it would be extremely difficult. It was almost impossible. Finally, Xian Yao opened her eyes and said excitedly, "Brother, Lin Ling and I are friends." Hee hee. Everyone was dazed. What did this mean? Who is Lin Ling? Lei Xingfeng asked, "Who is Lin Ling? Don't you know that you've reached the peak stage of monarch?" Xian Yao said, "What peak stage of monarch? Lin Ling is that little person. She's so cute. I love her to death." Hee hee. Everyone was completely speechless. She wasn't excited about leveling up. She didn't even care. The only thing she was happy about was becoming friends with the little person. Lin Ling Guqi let out a long sigh. He did not think that a little girl would be able to easily become a peak true monarch like him after obtaining a medicine spirit. This was truly intolerable. At this moment, Xian Yao said, "Wow, I leveled up." Chapter 519. Everyone shook their heads and felt that this little girl's luck was absurd. However, according to the rules, they still congratulated her. The secret sects had to hold a grand celebration for anyone who became a monarch. However, Xian Yao didn't care at all and directly rejected it. According to her, there was nothing to celebrate about becoming a monarch. If there was to be a celebration, it would be to get Lin Ling, Lei Xingfeng said. "Yao Yao, let Lin Ling out for a moment." "Let me see." Xian Yao said. "She's a bit scared and shy. There are too many people." There were only Wu Yang, Gao Yi, Guqi, Lei Xingfeng, and Thunderstorm who came later. Including Xian Yao, there were only 6 people. Seeing that her brother insisted, Xian Yao could only coax Lin Ling. Lin Ling appeared in Xian Yao's hand and hugged Xian Yao's thumb. "Sister, they're all bad people. Why do you want to see bad people?" "Ying." Lei Xingfeng said, "You found your nest because of me. Let me introduce myself. I'm Lei Xingfeng." He said seriously. Lin Ling looked at Lei Xingfeng in shock. After a while, she didn't feel any malicious intent. Spirit items were very sensitive to people. They could tell whether someone was good or bad. No matter how you try to hide it, it was useless. Xian Yao also said, "This is my brother. You can call him brother too." This little girl actually shared her brother. One could imagine how much she loved Lin Ling. Lin Ling's little face was extremely delicate. Although it was very small, her brows were like a painting. She said, "Okay, since sister said so, then I'll call you brother." Ying. Thunderstorm looked down and stared at her. "I'm Thunderstorm, Yao Yao's Ai." Lin Ling looked at Xian Yao and then at Thunderstorm. "Hello, Ai." Ying. Gao Yi said, "I'm Gao Yi. You can call me Grandpa Gao." Lin Ling shrunk her neck and buried her head behind Xian Yao's thumb, saying softly, "Big monster. Ying, what a scary guy, Ying." Gao Yi rubbed his nose and laughed awkwardly. "Haha, this little guy is still shy with strangers, huh?" Wu Yang and Guqi were very smart. They didn't introduce themselves and just watched silently. Xian Yao hoped that Lin Ling would be nice to her family. She didn't want to persuade Lin Ling and didn't want to give her any grievances. Lin Ling hugged Lei Xingfeng's thumb and squatted in her palm as if she was afraid of Gao Yi. Lei Xingfeng didn't know whether to laugh or to be angry. He said, "Okay, no one here will hurt you. Come to Big Brother's hand." As he spoke, Lei Xingfeng stretched out his hand. Lin Ling looked pitifully at Xian Yao and said, Ying, Big Brother's a guy. Ying, I'm embarrassed to go over." Xian Yao encouraged, It's okay. Big brother is a very nice person. Just go and say hi. Seeing that Xan Yao insisted, Lin Ling could only slowly climb on a Lei Xingfeng's palm and said, "Don't move, or else Lin Ling will fall." Ing Ing. Her body shook, and she quickly hugged Lei Xingfeng's thumb and said, "I told you not to shake. Ing Ing, it's scary." This little person was very light. Lei Xingfeng couldn't even feel her weight. He carefully took back his hand and brought Lin Ling closer to take a look. Lin Ling said in shock, "Don't get so close, Ing Ing, it's scary." "What big eyes, Ing Ing, so scary." Lei Xingfeng smelled a faint fragrance. He only took a breath, and all the pores on his body opened up. That feeling was really wonderful. His heart couldn't help but be moved. This little thing should have some powerful skills, right? Lin Ling then scurried onto Xan Yao's shoulder and tightly grabbed Xan Yao's collar, saying, "I want to go back, I want to go back, Ing Ing, it's so scary outside." Everyone didn't know whether to laugh or cry. They knew that little people were timid, but this timid, they had seen it for themselves. Xan Yao reached out and grabbed Lin Ling. She carefully patted Lin Ling's head and comforted her. Don't be scared, okay, I'll send you back." In an instant, Lin Ling disappeared from Xan Yao's hand. Wu Yang laughed. "We worked for nothing. All the benefits were given to a Feng's little sister. Okay, let's disperse." Everyone dispersed. Xan Yao secretly shook Lei Xingfeng's arm and pointed at the metal cube. Lei Xingfeng's heart moved slightly, and he nodded lightly. He went up and took it, saying, "I'll take this." Wu Yang didn't mind and said, "It's empty inside, okay, take it." Xan Yao dragged Lei Xingfeng home, which was very close to Lei Xingfeng's house. On the way, Lei Xingfeng asked, "What's wrong? Why do you want that metal box?" Xan Yao laughed and said excitedly, "There's good stuff in the box." Lei Xingfeng had seen the box, and it was empty. He asked suspiciously, "I didn't see anything inside." Xan Yao was like a little fox that had stolen chicken. She smiled and pulled Lei Xingfeng away quickly, whispering, "Let's go back to your room and talk." The two quickly reached home and went to Lei Xingfeng's room. The two sat down. Lei Xingfeng took out the open metal box and carefully inspected it. "There's nothing inside." Xan Yao laughed. "Of course, Big Brother can't find it. This is our Xiao Ling's treasure. Only Xiao Ling can find it." "Hee hee, Xiao Ling, come out." Lei Xingfeng said with interest, "Oh, you're already calling me Xiao Ling. When did we become so close?" Lin Ling flew out and landed directly in the open box. He didn't know how she did it, but the bottom of the box split open in an instant. There was actually space inside, like a honeycomb. Some of the spaces were closed, while others were empty. It was so densely packed that he didn't know what was inside. The hexagonal spaces were as thick as a finger. Lei Xingfeng couldn't count how many there were. 2/3 of them were closed. There was obviously something inside, but he didn't know what it was. Lei Xingfeng asked curiously, "What's inside?" Xan Yao laughed. "Xiao Ling gave it to me. Look, it's this." She reached out and pointed at one of the spaces. A hexagonal cylinder rose from the space, and she pulled it out. It was a palm-sized, finger-thick bottle. He didn't know what it was made of. The bottle was transparent, and he could see that half of it was filled with a faint green liquid. There were no openings at the top and bottom. He didn't know how the liquid was sealed. Lei Xingfeng raised the bottle and examined it carefully. Although he didn't know what it was, the treasure light emitted by the liquid couldn't escape Lei Xingfeng's eyes. Such a strong treasure light couldn't compare to a spirit item, but the difference was limited. Lei Xingfeng asked, "Xiao Ling, what is this?" Lin Ling was still feeling proud, but when Lei Xingfeng spoke, her body visibly shook. This made Lei Xingfeng feel depressed. "Am I that scary?" Xan Yao quickly comforted, "Xiao Ling, don't be scared. Brother is very good." With her mediating, Lin Ling finally calmed down. Xan Yao said, "Brother is asking you, what is this?" She wanted Lin Ling to interact with Lei Xingfeng more. That way, she would be able to get rid of her fear. Lin Ling said, "Ing Ing, this is 1,000 trough, 10,000-year spirit liquid. It's a treasure that accompanied me as I grew up." The 1,000 trough referred to the honeycomb-like spaces. The 10,000-year spirit liquid was precious. Lei Xingfeng quickly found the records of the 10,000-year spirit liquid in his memory. He couldn't help but be overjoyed. It's actually this legendary treasure. Little sister, this thing is very useful to you. Take it all. Lin Ling said, it's also useful to brother. She finally called him brother. Xi and Yao immediately rejoiced. With Lin Ling's acknowledgement, they would be a family in the future. She was also worried that Lin Ling would ignore Lei Xingfeng. That would make her very sad. Lei Xingfeng smiled. Indeed, the 10,000-year spirit liquid is not only useful to me, but also to everyone. He already knew that with this treasure, his little sister's concoction skills would be greatly improved. The thousand trough itself was a treasure on par with the 10,000-year spirit liquid. Every space in this thing was extremely precious. If a medicine was placed inside, not only could it increase the quality of the medicine, but it could also be nurtured for a long time. Ordinary medicine could also become superior. If it was an extremely precious medicine, the quality would be even higher after being placed inside. If it was a long time ago, it could even become a spirit liquid. Lei Xingfeng said, little sister, keep this thousand trough well. It's an absolute treasure. I don't think anyone would be able to make such a treasure now. Xian Yao giggled as she took out all the tubes from the thousand trough. She said, these are all old enough. They should have exceeded the age limit long ago. If they continue to be placed inside, it will be a waste of the thousand trough. I will make a batch of medicine and place it inside. It's a pity that Master and the others aren't here anymore. Her mood immediately sank. Lei Xingfeng patted her shoulder lightly and said, it's fine. Yi and I will often go to the magnetic storm mountain range. Perhaps we'll meet them again. Xan Yao nodded vigorously and said, I believe we'll find Master again. Lin Ling looked around curiously. She was living in Xian Yao's wooden seal, and to her, the wooden seal was a very good home. Of course, she wouldn't run away. The outside world wasn't as safe as the wooden seal, and the conditions wouldn't be as good as the wooden seal. With Lin Ling here, Xian Yao would have another cheat. Her future cultivation would be incomparably fast, and Lin Ling would also use this to develop. Xian Yao kept the 10,000-year spirit liquid and divided it into 3 portions. One portion was given to Lei Xingfeng, one to Yi, and one for herself. This 10,000-year spirit liquid could be used by herself or used to make medicine. It was definitely a good thing. Lei Xingfeng shook his head. He knew how to use the 10,000-year spirit liquid. He was clear in his heart that the 10,000-year spirit liquid was very useful to Xian Yao. He didn't need to take so much. He only took the less than 100 bottles and returned the rest to Xian Yao. He said, little sister, you need this more. Chapter 520. Of course, the more the better. When refining medicine, even if a trace of 10,000 years old spiritual liquid was added, it would immediately amplify the effect of the medicine by a few times, or even a few dozen times. Even the most ordinary medicine would become the best medicine. A bottle the size of a palm and the thickness of a finger would contain at least a few dozen drops of 10,000 years old spiritual liquid. If it was a full bottle, then it would contain a few hundred drops of 10,000 years old spiritual liquid. Lin Ling looked curiously at Lei Xingfeng and Lei Xingfeng's conversation. She was trying her best to learn. Although she had intelligence and spirituality, she was still unfamiliar with humans. She could only use her intuition to differentiate between humans. If the other party had ill intentions, she would run as far as she could. He found Thunderstorm and told him about the 10,000-year spirit liquid. Thunderstorm's choice was the same as Lei Xingfeng's. He only took less than 100 vials and gave the rest to Lei Xingyao. It was much more useful to leave it in her hands. Lei Xingfeng gave out 12 vials. He found Wu Yang, Guqi, and Gao Yi and gave them 4 each. With these vials, Wu Yang and Guqi would have no difficulty in advancing. Wu Yang and Guqi felt like they had obtained a treasure. They had heard of this legendary treasure. Not only could it strengthen the body, but it could also increase one's cultivation level. Most importantly, if one used the 10,000-year spirit liquid while at a bottleneck, it would be easy to advance. The two had been stuck at a bottleneck for a long time and couldn't advance no matter what they did. This had long become their sore point. The higher the level, the harder it was for them to break through. This was because it was very difficult for them to change their cultivation path, even if they had the basic cultivation method. On the other hand, it was the true human rank cultivators who had the basic cultivation method that made it easier for them to break through. Therefore, when the two of them saw their disciples catch up, it would be a lie to say that they weren't worried. Wu Yang said, "I'll advance in the new camp. This place is more suitable than the mirror world." This place was suitable for cultivation. This was something everyone agreed upon. Gucci said, "All right, Master, you advance first. As long as we have a Tao Lord Patriarch, the secret sect will be much safer." Everyone in the sect hoped that someone would advance to become a Tao Lord Patriarch. Without a powerful force in their clan, everyone would feel uneasy. This was especially so in this place, where the risk was extremely high. Once an enemy appeared, a Tao Lord Patriarch would be able to sweep through the entire secret sect. Wu Yang nodded and said, "I've prepared all the materials. With the addition of the 10,000-year spirit liquid, I'm even more confident. Then, let's advance in the new camp. Everyone from the middle to upper echelons will come and watch." Gucci said, "Yes, don't worry. We'll protect this place well." Lei Xingfeng said, "I'll arrange for people to patrol." Wu Yang nodded in satisfaction and said, "You guys go and make the arrangements. I'll make some adjustments first. There's still some materials that need to be purified and refined. At the same time, I have to prepare the materials for the secret sect." The secret sect of a Tao Lord Patriarch was different from that of a Heavenly Lord. It required a large amount of materials to refine. Of course, all the materials had to be prepared beforehand after the advancement. As for the potions and some advancement treasures, Wu Yang had already prepared them. All those years of hard work were not for nothing. Lei Xingfeng laughed and said, "When our secret sect also has a Tao Lord Patriarch, we can straighten our backs." Everyone's face was filled with joy. Lei Xingfeng believed that Wu Yang wouldn't have much of a problem advancing. It was almost a matter of time, especially with the 10,000-year spirit liquid. Before this, there might have been some doubts. Now, not only was Lei Xingfeng confident, everyone was confident. Wu Yang's face was full of smiles. This time, he was pleasantly surprised. He didn't expect Lei Xingfeng to find such a perverted treasure like the 10,000-year spirit liquid. It was said that this thing could not only help one advance, but it could also heal serious injuries. It could even regenerate flesh from bones and bring someone back from the brink of death. With such a vial of 10,000-year spirit liquid, as long as one wasn't beaten into a pulp, no matter how serious the injury, it could be healed. At most, one would need 2 vials to advance. If one was lucky, one would be enough. There would still be 3 vials of 10,000-year spirit liquid left. This was more useful than any medicine. First, they built a house specifically for advancing. The requirement was that it be spacious and tall. There were Wind Enlightenment sect overseers and a large group of low-level cultivators to build it. They also used the old method to forge the big stamp for advancing. This was the old method, which they couldn't do anything about. Wu Yang's cultivation was too high. It was too difficult for him to change his cultivation technique and advancement method. Therefore, they had to use the old method to advance. The only thing different from the old method was the use of a large number of new materials. In the past, they were extremely lacking in high-end materials. However, after searching the great, forbidden areas in outer space, they found many high-grade materials. For example, the blood of adult star beasts. These materials were extremely helpful for advancing. Not to mention, they also obtained the 10,000-year spirit liquid. Wu Yang's advancement made everyone in the secret sect nervous. Everyone worked hard to vent the uneasiness in their hearts. Gucci and Lei Xingfeng were even more busy. They directed the operation of the entire secret sect. This was a huge matter. It involved the top combat strength of the secret sect. No one dared to be careless. Even Thunderstorm and Gao Yi were patrolling outside with patrol teams to prevent outside invasions. The great stand platform used for advancement was built in the open space outside. It required a large number of stamp rings and various materials. Therefore, the great stand platform was personally built by Wu Yang. There were many things that needed to be made by him. Large amounts of materials were used up like flowing water. Wu Yang had prepared for hundreds of years. He prepared at least 2 sets of each material. He was afraid that he wouldn't have enough when he needed them. If he didn't have enough now, it would be too late to cry. This was also one of the reasons why Tao Lord Patriarch insisted on migrating. The materials in their hometown were really insufficient. If they were lucky enough to find some high-grade materials, they would be considered lucky. When a peak heavenly lord wanted to advance, many people were stuck at the level of materials. It was extremely frustrating. Lei Xingfeng had been following Wu Yang all this time. He learned and asked for advice. Although he didn't necessarily use this method to advance, it was still very enlightening for him. Lei Xingfeng had some special methods to purify materials. Especially since he was of the thunder element, he could sometimes use electric arcs to purify materials. Therefore, Wu Yang also gave Lei Xingfeng a portion of the materials. Wu Yang was full of praise for the results. Wu Yang had already prepared the elixirs for advancement. Of course, with the 10,000-year spirit liquid, these high-grade elixirs were much less useful. After 3 months of hard work, the building for advancement had long been completed. The most important stamp platform was also almost complete. All that was left was to inlay the stamp rings. Wu Yang took out a dozen saint rings. It wasn't easy for him to get them. They were just enough. One had to know that saint rings were very helpful for advancement. Lei Xingfeng didn't have any saint rings himself. He smiled and said, "Founder, once you advance to the Tao Lord realm, you should be able to condense a saint ring, right?" Wu Yang said, "I don't know. I hope so. I hope I can condense a saint ring. That way, when you advance, it will be helpful." Lei Xingfeng nodded. He knew that even if Wu Yang could condense saint rings, there probably wouldn't be many of them. This was different from Yin rings. Forcibly condensing a saint ring would be a huge burden for a beginner Tao Lord Realm ancestor. However, Lei Xingfeng wasn't in a hurry. He still had a long time to advance to the peak of the Heaven Lord Realm, unless he found a mid-high level thunder element cultivation technique. Other than the stand platform, Wu Yang had to constantly adjust his state. He had long reached the peak of the Heaven Lord Realm. He was just 1 step away from advancing. However, he didn't dare to do so. Once he failed, it meant death. This was especially true for high-level cultivators. Now that the preparations for his breakthrough had been completed, the entire secret sect was filled with an atmosphere of excitement and unease. This was the most important moment for the secret sect. They chose a beautiful, sunny day to formally begin their breakthrough to the Tao Lord Patriarch level. They sat in a spacious hall in a newly constructed building. In the middle was a low stone platform. There were many Yin rings embedded on it. This was the first step of cultivation. The goal was to adjust one's mind, energy, and spirit to the best state before going to the stand platform to advance. Everyone was nervous. Gucci, Lei Xingfeng, Thunderstorm, Gao Yi, Feng Qinzong, La Zi, Bai Yuan, and Ruqing, Chue, and Little Chue were all present. They sat in a circle, guarding the hall. Behind them were Yuko and the other senior brothers and sisters. Behind them were the 7th, 8th, and 9th ring sage of the secret sect. This was also a benefit. Advancing to the Tao Lord realm wasn't something that just anyone could see. In 3 days, Wu Yang had completely adjusted. He had waited for too long. Because he had long reached the peak of the Heaven Lord realm, it was very easy for him to adjust. With some external help, it only took him 3 days to reach a level that he was satisfied with. Wu Yang slowly stood up. "Let's go to the stand platform." Everyone accompanied Wu Yang as they slowly walked out of the room. They arrived in front of the stand platform. At this time, the sky was completely dark. Large bonfires were lit around the stand platform, illuminating the entire platform. The stand platform was very different from the previous ones. This was the stand platform for advancing to the Tao Lord realm. It was very complicated. Lei Xingfeng played a big part in this. He added some supplementary restrictions. In the entire secret sect, Lei Xingfeng's control of restrictions was at the forefront of everyone. Even Wu Yang couldn't compare. Wu Yang slowly walked onto the stand platform. Everyone looked on nervously. They saw him sit on the specially prepared seat. He slowly let out a breath and said, "This is a great development for our secret sect. Everyone, please bless me." As time passed, Wu Yang's aura gradually grew stronger. Lei Xingfeng, Gao Yi, Thunderstorm, and Gucci sat on the four corners of the stand platform. Everyone else was suppressed by this aura and retreated. The only one who could still stand was Lei Xingyao. Her cultivation wasn't the same as before. She was now in existence second only to Gucci. She was also a peak True Lord. The next morning, the stand platform began to flicker with countless lights. Wu Yang's entire body became a large body of light. The stamp ring began to crack. This was because its energy had been exhausted. An illusory figure rose and quickly solidified. This was the true body of a Tao Lord. Chapter 5:21. A whirlwind suddenly appeared, and it was as if the entire sky had changed. The whistling sound of the wind suddenly rang out, and the surrounding people couldn't stand still. They all retreated into the distance. Fortunately, the stand platform was built in a spacious area, so it didn't affect the surrounding buildings. Lei Xingfeng and the others couldn't stay on the stand platform any longer. Gucci was the first to retreat from the platform, and he was forced to continuously retreat by the powerful aura. Lei Xingfeng, Thunderstorm, and Gao Yi were also forced off the platform and retreated step by step. They were only slightly better off than Gucci. After Wu Yang used this stand platform, he could give it to Gucci after some slight modifications. This way, he could save a lot of materials, so Gucci valued the stand platform very much. This state lasted for a few hours, and it wasn't until noon that the powerful aura gradually weakened. Wu Yang had been sitting there the whole time, and now he moved. He took out a medicine and drank it. This was a high-grade medicine he had obtained from Lei Xingyao's secret sect, and it was specially used to calm the boiling Yinli. Waiting was boring, but no one was impatient. All of them stared with wide eyes, memorizing any changes in their minds. This was a treasure. When they advanced, it would be useful as a reference. Of course, 99% of the people present had no hope of reaching the Tao Lord level. Even so, no one was willing to leave. After drinking the medicine, Wu Yang sat down again. This was the time for him to rest and use the medicine to repair the damage caused by his sudden increase in strength. Let alone advancing to the Tao Monarch level. Even advancing to the true Monarch level was a long process. This was the biggest flaw of secret sect cultivation. Lei Xingfeng had obtained a lightning-type cultivation technique in the magnetic storm mountain range, and unknowingly advanced to the heavenly monarch level. It wasn't that complicated, and there weren't that many dangers. By the time Wu Yang completely digested the medicine, 2 days had already passed. At this time, Wu Yang's aura had risen again, and his true body appeared once more. This time, his true body was 6 meters tall, and not only was it incomparably powerful, but his aura was even stronger. Xian Yao said softly, "Brother, his real body isn't even as big as yours." Lei Xingfeng didn't understand either. He said, "I don't know. Maybe there's something else." In fact, when Wu Yang was a lord of heaven, he also had a phantom true body. However, this true body was far inferior to Lei Xingfeng's. Lei Xingfeng referred to the blackbird's true body and cultivated it himself. It was different from the true bodies of Wu Yang and other cultivators. There was no comparison. Every spectator stayed near the stand platform, eating, drinking, and defecating. All of these were taken care of by the lower-level cultivators. Even Jean Depang didn't have time to cook. He had a group of subordinates, so the higher-level cultivators guarding the stand platform didn't have to worry about food and drink. Basically, they ate once every 2 or 3 days, and Jean Depang ordered his subordinates to bring them food. Everyone was waiting for Wu Yang to make the final breakthrough. Up until now, Wu Yang had been adjusting and tidying up his body and preparing to make the breakthrough. However, in order to advance, there was still an important step. This time was quite long. Wu Yang sat on the stand platform for 8 whole days. Then, a slender tube appeared in his hand. He directly stuffed it into his mouth, leaving a small section outside his lips. It was just like Lei Xingfeng's previous life, when he had a thermometer in his mouth. Lei Xingfeng knew at a glance that this was the 10,000-year spirit liquid. He knew that the final step had come. Suddenly, Wu Yang's stamp flew out and suspended above his head. A phantom true body gradually became clear and solidified. At this time, it was already 7 meters tall. An incomparable aura once again spread out, pressuring everyone to quickly retreat. Even Lei Xingfeng, Thunderstorm, and Gao Yi were no exception. They also retreated. They couldn't release their own aura to resist, so they could only retreat and not advance. It was like a rising tide, wave after wave of aura explosively surging. Lei Xingfeng watched from afar, secretly worried. He didn't know that Wu Yang was currently in big trouble. True body, main body, and stamp. When these 3 fused, Wu Yang would advance. But now, the 3 were Ding Ding and Mao were Mao. It was impossible to fuse them together, and as time passed, they would all collapse. Wu Yang continuously tried to fuse them together, but failed again and again. His whole body began to sweat. He was anxious. Everyone with good eyesight could see the sweat flowing down Wu Yang's face like a stream. Soon, his body was drenched, as if he just climbed out of the water. Lei Xingfeng's face became serious. Gao Yi said, "Something's wrong. There seems to be a problem." Thunderstorm also whispered, "Something's wrong." Gucci was so nervous that his face turned pale. Tanya grabbed Gucci's hand tightly, her body trembling slightly. One had to know that Gucci was the disciple that Wu Yang had poured his heart and soul into. After all the other disciples left, only Gucci and his wife remained. They were already like family. Lei Xingfeng said calmly, "It's fine. Ancestor still has a move that he hasn't used yet." Gucci had obtained the 10,000-year soul potion. He knew what Lei Xingfeng was talking about, so he calmed down a little. Just as Wu Yang was at his limit, he finally made up his mind to use the 10,000-year soul potion. He originally thought that he wouldn't need it, so he kept it in his mouth and didn't bite it to pieces to absorb it. However, at this point, he had no choice but to use it. He bit down hard, and there was a slight cracking sound. In an instant, an extremely rich, sweet fragrance spread out in his mouth. Before he could swallow it, it was directly absorbed by his mouth. Lei Xingfeng heard the cracking sound almost at the moment he bit it. Although it was an extremely low sound, because he had been paying attention to Wu Yang, the sound was shocking. He said, "I'm using it." As soon as he said this, Wu Yang's momentum skyrocketed again, and it was an unbridled surge. His real body also grew crazily until it was 70 or 80 meters tall. It was as if it had a solid body, completely covering his real body. His seal fell in an instant and directly sank into the head of his real body. The 3 began to blend together and completely fuse together. Lei Xingfeng immediately breathed a sigh of relief and said, "It's done. It still needs a long time to fuse. We just have to watch. It's so F***king scary." Gucci wiped his sweat and said, "Me too. I was scared to death. It was actually so difficult." He suddenly understood that if it wasn't for the 10,000-year spirit liquid, his master's advancement would have been in danger. Looking at the situation just now, without the 10,000-year spirit liquid, Wu Yang might have died. Lazi didn't react. He didn't know that there was such an abnormal treasure like the 10,000-year spirit liquid. When he saw Wu Yang begin to fuse, he understood that Wu Yang wouldn't have a big problem advancing to Tao Lord Ancestor. He also breathed a sigh of relief. However, he didn't know how dangerous Wu Yang had been through just now. When Wu Yang passed through the last checkpoint, the Yin rings and Saint rings prepared on the Great Seal platform began to gradually shatter. The air in the entire camp was stirred up. No one knew what substance was being absorbed, but the crackling sounds of shattering caused everyone's hearts to tremble. In a howling wind, the 70 or 80-meter tall real body began to shine. Lei Xingfeng said, This place is indeed more suitable for cultivation than our hometown. The ancestor must have absorbed something from the air. This wind came so suddenly. Gucci said, "Yes, cultivating here for a day is better than cultivating back home for a few days. I wonder what it will be like to go to the center of the continent." Lei Xingfeng said, "There are so many large sects there. It must be better than here. However, we don't have the strength to occupy that place." Gao Yi said, "If our hidden sect can produce 8 or 10 Dao Lord Ancestors, I believe we can also occupy a place there." Lei Xingfeng couldn't help but laugh and said, "Do you need to say that? 8 or 10? If we can produce 2 or 3, our hidden sect will be amazing." Wu Yang's real body was becoming more and more real. His head was emitting a faint light. That was the sign of a seal fusion. As for Wu Yang's real body, it was completely invisible. That enormous aura was still spreading. Lei Xingfeng and the others had already retreated a few hundred meters away. The others had retreated into some buildings. This aura was truly frightening. Those with low levels couldn't withstand it all. Lei Xingfeng said with emotion, "Our hidden sect has finally produced a Dao Lord Ancestor. It really wasn't easy." Gucci said, "Yes. Once we have a Dao Lord Ancestor, we'll be a first-rate large hidden sect. However, it's still far from enough here." Lei Xingfeng said, "As long as we develop steadily, we'll definitely produce experts. In any case, Master won't have any problems advancing this time." Gucci understood that after seeing Wu Yang use the 10,000-year spirit liquid to advance, it was equivalent to opening up a path for him to advance. In other words, the 10,000-year spirit liquid would be of great help to breaking through bottlenecks. It could even be said to be the final nail in the coffin. Wu Yang's huge real body sat on the seal platform. After more than 20 days, it began to shrink bit by bit. This process was very difficult for Wu Yang. Lei Xingfeng and the others knew that as long as Wu Yang's real body returned to his body, this advancement would come to a perfect conclusion. As time passed, the real body shrank bit by bit. It went from 70 meters to 7 meters. This process was very slow. After 42 days, the real body had shrunk to 3 meters. Wu Yang's real body was about to be revealed. At this point, Lei Xingfeng finally relaxed. He said, "There's no problem. There's only one last thing left. I believe the founder will have a way." Now I know how difficult it is to advance to Dao Lord. Thunderstorm said, "That's an old-fashioned advancement method. I don't know which genius invented it. It's so complicated." Gucci sighed and said, "That's because there's no other way. Without high-grade materials, we have to use low-grade materials to forcefully advance. Of course, it'll become more and more complicated." Gao Yi suddenly said, "It's done." Everyone's eyes immediately turned to the seal platform. Wu Yang stood up. Chapter 522. As Wu Yang stood up, his aura gradually diminished. Only then did everyone gather around him. When Wu Yang sat down the stand platform, Gucci asked first, "Master, how was it?" A trace of fear appeared on Wu Yang's face as he said, "I've been hesitating about advancing. Now, it seems like I made the right choice. If it wasn't for a phone, I probably wouldn't have been able to advance. It's really scary. I didn't expect it to be so difficult. Every Dao, Lord Patriarch, who advances in their hometown is a peerless genius." This was the first time he had experienced such a breakthrough. Gucci was speechless. After a while, he said, "I want to advance to a mid-level Heaven Lord. I don't know if it's possible." Wu Yang reached out and patted him on the shoulder. He smiled and said, "You won't have a problem. You don't even need to use the stand platform. Just use a Feng's method." Gucci knew that a Feng's method was to use the 10,000 years spirit liquid. He didn't expect Wu Yang to praise it so much. Lei Xingfeng said, "Master, it's okay. Advancing to a mid-level Heaven Lord won't be a problem." Wu Yang said, "It's a pity. So many materials have been wasted." According to his experience of advancing, he didn't need these materials at all. A single vial of 10,000-year spirit liquid would solve all the problems. However, he wasn't confident back then. After all, He hadn't tested it. Who knew how useful the 10,000 years spirit liquid was? Gucci said, "It's not a waste. Even if we use up all the materials in the secret sect, as long as Master can advance, it's not a waste." With a Tao Lord Patriarch in the secret sect, any price was worth it. A Tao Lord Patriarch was too important to the secret sect. At this time, the others had already gathered around and were congratulating them in high spirits. Everyone was saying auspicious things. Wu Yang's face was full of smiles as he kept exchanging pleasantries with everyone. As the leader of the secret sect, it was only now that he had real confidence. Since the migration, he had watched a large group of people continuously advance, especially Lei Xingfeng, who had directly advanced from a ninth ring sage to a heavenly monarch. This had put a lot of pressure on him. Today, he could finally relax. Wu Yang smiled and said, "Gucci, in 2 days, you should start to advance as well. Try to see how far you can advance from the primary level Heaven Monarch realm. Don't use the Great Seal altar. Although that thing is a little helpful, it's not very useful." Gucci happily agreed. He now completely understood that he still had to rely on the 10,000-year spirit liquid to truly advance. With Wu Yang's exploration and experimentation, it had saved him a lot of trouble. A group of low-level cultivators began to clean the Great Seal altar, sweeping away the ashes of the shattered Yin rings. The Yin rings that hadn't been used up were their reward. One had to know that Wu Yang had used more than 100,000 Yin rings on the Great Seal altar. Because he had used the 10,000-year spirit liquid later on, there were still some Yin rings that hadn't been used up. These were the benefits of the low-level cultivators. Everyone clustered around Wu Yang and returned to the cultivation hall. Because Wu Yang still needed to stabilize his cultivation, everyone continued to watch over Wu Yang for a while. Of course, this time, they didn't all have to be there. Instead, they took turns. Lei Xingfeng and Lei Xingyao were the first batch. Ever since Lei Xingyao advanced to the peak true monarch realm, even though she wasn't a member of the secret sect yet, her relationship with Lei Xingfeng had given her a relatively high status. Wu Yang sat in the cultivation hall and began to eat. After not eating for so many days, even though he was a Tao monarch realm ancestor, his stomach was still rumbling with hunger. Jean Depang brought a large amount of food and placed it in front of Wu Yang. Lei Xingfeng and Lei Xingyao also had a portion. The two of them had only eaten some simple dry rations during this time and weren't in the mood to enjoy good food at all. This time, they took the opportunity to eat as much as they could. After eating, Wu Yang went to take a bath and change his clothes. Only then did he return to the cultivation hall and sit down to complete the last step of stabilizing his cultivation. Lei Xingfeng and Lei Xingyao sat at the entrance of the cultivation hall and guarded it. Everyone else went to do their own things. There were still many missions in the secret sect that required cultivators to complete. The blackbird descended from the sky and landed on Lei Xingfeng's shoulder. It said, "When are you going back to the magnetic storm mountains?" "Caw." Lei Xingfeng said, "Not for a while. Didn't we just go there?" Every time Lei Xingfeng went to the magnetic storm mountains, he needed a period of time to digest and absorb the energy after cultivating. He couldn't continuously cultivate in the thunder and lightning. Going too far was as bad as falling short. The blackbird said, "Bird has a feeling again. I want to go to the magnetic storm mountains to cultivate." Lei Xingfeng was speechless. After a while, he said, "You finished absorbing the thunder and lightning so quickly?" The blackbird said proudly, "Bird is different from others. Caw-caw. Bird's absorption is better than yours." It provoked very proudly. Lei Xingfeng said faintly, "Oh, then I won't take you." "Caw, caw." The blackbird suddenly lost its temper. If Lei Xingfeng didn't take it, the blackbird couldn't do anything. It wouldn't use the Mirror Realm's secret sect. Xian Yao laughed. She loved to see Hain Yao's embarrassment. She smiled and said, "Burbuda, you're in trouble. Brother won't bring you. You could go find Lei Yutian by yourself. Hee." The blackbird said in a sweet voice, "Grandpa, Grandpa, don't do this to Bird." As it said this, it attentively combed Lei Xingfeng's hair. Lei Xingyao rarely saw this side of the blackbird. She was surprised and said, "Wow, Brother, Burbuda knows how to flatter. It's so fun. Lin Ling came out from Lei Xingyao's shoulder and said, "A stupid bird, what's so fun about it?" Caw-caw. Lei Xingfeng froze. He didn't think that Lin Ling would be jealous. He couldn't help but laugh and said, "Little sister, look, Xiao Ling isn't happy." The black bird saw Lin Ling, and its eyes suddenly turned red. It cried out, "Wow, this thing is so nutritious. Caw, give it to the bird to eat." Lin Ling was scared and jumped into Lei Xingyao's collar. Half of her small head was exposed. She screamed, "The stupid bird wants to eat people. Caw-caw, so scary." The black bird spread its wings and was about to fly away, but it was caught by Lei Xingfeng. What a joke! Lin Ling was Lei Xingyao's treasure. If she was eaten by the black bird, then it would be big trouble. Lei Xingyao glared and said, "You dare." The blackbird said, "Caw, good stuff, caw, it's so nutritious." It knew its stuff. Although it didn't know that Lin Ling was a spiritual creature, its intuition told it that once it ate Lin Ling, its power would increase by leaps and bounds. Lei Xingfeng was furious and said, "If you dare to talk nonsense again, I'll eat you." The blackbird cawed and was speechless. It was also afraid that Lei Xingfeng would get angry, so it quickly stopped struggling and said, Okay, on account of me, this bird will let you go." Lin Ling trembled. This little thing was very timid and liked to be jealous. Lei Xingyao quickly held her in her hands and comforted her. "Xiao Ling, don't be afraid. The black bird won't dare to eat you. Don't worry, if it dares to eat you, Big Brother will roast it and eat it." The black bird said in fear, "Nonsense." Lei Xingfeng flicked the blackbird's head and said, "How can you say that? Don't you know how to say it?" This flick made the blackbird dizzy. After a while it shouted, "Caw, bully bird." Seeing Lei Xingfeng flick the blackbird, Lin Ling immediately became happy. She giggled and said, Okay, let's do it a few more times." The blackbird glared and said, "Caw, you don't want to live anymore." Lin Ling saw the ferocious light in the blackbird's eyes and said in shock, Caw, this is a bad bird. Caw, it's scaring me again." Lei Xingyao said, "Bird Beard, shut up, don't scare our family, Xiaoling." The blackbird wasn't stupid. It knew that if it continued to talk nonsense, not only would Lei Xingfeng not forgive it, but Lei Xingyao would also be angry. It said, Okay, this bird won't say anything. Then it muttered softly, "This bird is going to fall out of favor, such a small person, and she knows how to bewitch people's hearts. This bird is so angry. This world has changed too much. It's not easy for birds to survive, caw." Lei Xingfeng and Lei Xingyao were amused. The blackbird was also a clown. It was still very fun to have it around. From then on, the blackbird and Lin Ling were a pair of enemies. A bird and a small person. Unless they didn't meet, there was nothing good to say. Although the blackbird didn't dare to eat Lin Ling, its intention could be seen by anyone. For the blackbird, seeing but not eating was definitely a torture. Lei Xingfeng turned to look at Wu Yang and found that Wu Yang's breath was completely restrained. He knew that the problem wasn't big. Since there was nothing to do, Lei Xingfeng began to fish for information from Lin Ling. He said, "Xiao Ling, what was in your box originally?" Lin Ling looked at him vigilantly and said, "Ying, didn't you get it? You saw everything. What's there to ask?" Lei Xingfeng acted like a good person and said, "I'm just concerned about you. Was the box originally used to store the 10,000-year spirit liquid?" Lin Ling hugged Lei Xingfeng's thumb with a suspicious look. Seeing this, Lin Ling didn't know whether to laugh or cry. After a while, she said, "It wasn't used to store the 10,000-year spirit liquid. Ying." Lei Xingfeng asked curiously, "It wasn't used to store the 10,000-year spirit liquid? Then what was it used to store?" Lin Ling yelled a few times but didn't answer. Lei Xingfeng asked again, "Then where did the 10,000-year spirit liquid come from?" Lin Ling's face was completely red, and she mumbled, Ying, this, Ying. The blackbird said so strange she actually blushed. "Why?" Lin Ling immediately hid her little head behind Lei Xingyao's thumb and said, Ying, I don't know, Ying." Lei Xingyao's heart ached and immediately took Lin Ling into the wooden seal and said, Okay, don't ask. Xiao Ling doesn't want to answer. In fact, she was also very curious. Lin Ling lived in the wooden seal and could talk to Lei Xingyao, but the outside world couldn't see it at all. Lei Xingyao asked in her heart, "Xiao Ling, where did the 10,000-year spirit liquid come from?" Lin Ling wasn't as shy in front of Lei Xingyao as she muttered softly, "That's the trash that Xiao Ling excreted." Lei Xingyao exclaimed in shock. Huh? Huh? She was speechless. Luckily, Xiao Ling was a spirit creature. Even if it was trash, after some time, it was still an absolute treasure. Chapter 523. Lei Xingfeng asked, "Little sister, what's wrong?" Exine Yao said, "No, nothing." The blackbird said, "So secretive, it's definitely not something good." "Caw, this bird can guess, caw." This time it was right. This time, even Exine Yao's face was slightly red. Thinking about Lin Ling's words, she was a bit shy and found it funny. The corner of her mouth couldn't help but curl up. Lei Xingfeng looked at Exine Yao suspiciously. He always felt that this little girl's expression was a bit unnatural, but he couldn't guess why. The brother and sister chatted, and time passed quickly. A day later, Guqi and Gao Yi came to take over. Lei Xingfeng returned to his room and took out a bottle of 10,000-year-old spirit liquid. He carefully observed it in his palm. This thing was very beautiful, flashing with a faint green light. Because it was completely sealed, there was no smell. A while ago, when Wu Yang was advancing, Lei Xingfeng had smelled a very light fragrance. It was really refreshing. That feeling was definitely great. Lei Xingfeng hesitated for a moment. He almost couldn't resist the urge to break the bottle and see what this 10,000-year-old spirit liquid could do for him. Of course, in the end, he put it away. It was too wasteful to break it and absorb it now. He wasn't that extravagant. The blackbird flew in and said fawningly, "Grandpa, go to the magnetic storm mountain." "Caw, this bird really wants to go." Lei Xingfeng said, "But I don't want to go. When I want to go, I'll take you there. Or you can go find the old man. Maybe he'll go." The blackbird immediately became happy and spread its wings and flew out. Lei Xingfeng took out the star python records and looked up the legend of the 10,000-year-old spirit liquid. Even in this ancient sect, no one had seen this kind of spirit treasure. Among the effects of the 10,000-year-old spirit liquid, the most famous was a life-saving spirit medicine. As long as one was still breathing, it could save them. Of course, it was also very useful for advancing and breaking through bottlenecks. Of course, there were many other miraculous uses. It was definitely one of the top spirit items. As he read, he sighed. A treasure. If Exine Yao were here, she would probably die from laughter. Soon, the blackbird flew back and said, "This is so annoying. The old master is not going. Caw, the old master has to be on duty. Birds really have a hard life." Lei Xingfeng was watching with relish and was disturbed by the blackbird. He said in annoyance, "Go play somewhere else. Don't disturb me." The blackbird had no choice but to fly out. Its mouth squawking, it could hear that it was very uncomfortable. Lei Xingfeng didn't care about it. He just focused on looking at the star python record. Half a month passed very quickly. Wu Yang had completely consolidated his cultivation. Guqi had also consumed the 10,000-year spirit liquid and successfully advanced to the peak stage of the Heaven Monarch realm. Unfortunately, he had not reached the Dao Monarch realm. Wu Yang knew that he had obtained a great treasure this time. Once someone reached the peak stage of the true Monarch realm or the peak stage of the Heaven Monarch realm, there would be no obstacles in their advancement. In other words, the strength of the entire secret sect would increase as a whole. Two people advancing consecutively caused a stir in the lower levels of the secret sect. Everyone knew what it meant to have a Dao Monarch Realm Patriarch and a peak stage Heaven Monarch Realm Patriarch. Everyone in the secret sect was jubilant. Wu Yang even gave out a lot of things, including cultivation resources suitable for low-level disciples. Wu Yang went into seclusion again and began refining his new secret sect. The Dao Monarch Realm Patriarch's secret sect was much stronger than the Heaven Monarch Realm secret sect. With the Dao Monarch Realm Patriarch's secret sect and the Mirror Realm secret sect, it would be much more convenient to go to the outer continent in the future. In particular, The Tao Monarch Realm Patriarch secret sect could go to very far places. If Wu Yang brought Lei Xingfeng there, then the Mirror Realm secret sect would have more coordinates. Gucci went into seclusion as well. For the same reason, he wanted to upgrade his Heaven Monarch Realm secret sect. Lei Xingfeng was different. He had the Mirror Realm, so he could combine it with the Mirror Realm secret sect to obtain a matching ability. It could be said that the Mirror Realm's ability to cross realms was much stronger than the Tao Monarch Realm Patriarchs. However, Lei Xingfeng still needed to discover it. Cultivation was an important indicator. Now that the two most important people in the secret sect had both advanced, everyone felt a lot more relaxed. In fact, there were already people secretly discussing that Gucci's cultivation was not as fast as his disciples, but he still held the second position in the secret sect. They all thought it was quite inappropriate. Although these discussions were unlikely to reach the ears of the higher-ups, everyone knew that there was a faint pressure. Only now did this pressure dissipate. During this period of time, many low-level cultivators began to advance. No matter what method they used, a large number of people began to advance, especially with a large amount of resources and basic cultivation techniques. Many people could advance without the need for rings. This place was just too suitable for cultivation. Among the direct disciples, Yuko had finally advanced to Monarch. Yinyao had also successfully advanced. Neither of them had used the Great Seal altar and had quietly advanced. Bai Tianming was just one step away from advancing. He knew that he only needed to accumulate for a short period of time before he could advance. Gucci was overjoyed that two of his disciples had advanced in a row. For this reason, Gucci had specially gathered the disciples in Lei Xingfeng's front yard to celebrate the two's advancement. Yuko and Yinyao were not too excited, mainly because there was another person standing in front of them. Lei Xingfeng had not only advanced to Monarch, but also directly advanced to Monarch. Compared to this, the two were not as excited. Although they were still very happy, they also secretly made up their minds to continue cultivating. Lei Xingyao used a 10,000-year spirit liquid and other precious spirit herbs to concoct 100 high-level medicines. She gave the majority of them to Lei Xingfeng. This medicine was named Life Returning Elixir. The reason why she dared to use the word elixir was because it probably contained 10,000-year spirit liquid. Although its effects were not as good as 10,000-year spirit liquid, its medicinal effects were still shocking. This was the benefit of having a pharmacist. For normal cultivators, using 10,000-year spirit liquid was too much of a waste. As a gift, Lei Xingfeng represented his family and gave everyone some of this high-level medicine. When life-returning elixir was given away, no one paid much attention to it. Later on, they realized how precious this thing was. Whether it was healing or advancing, it was extremely useful. Every senior brother and sister received 2 elixirs, while Yuko and Yinyao, who had advanced, each received 4 elixirs. After the celebration, everyone dispersed. Lei Xingfeng purposely asked Jean Dia, Mad Eagle, Tiger Love, and his channel to stay. These 4 were his earliest bodyguards, and Lei Xingfeng had long since treated them as family. This time, he planned to give each of them a 10,000-year spirit liquid, hoping that they could use it to advance. Lei Xingfeng said, Uncle Jean, this elixir is for you. I'll take you to the back to advance. Jean Dia was shocked. What? He had long since given up hope. If not for the ring, he would have died a long time ago. Because he followed Lei Xingfeng, the ring was almost freely used. Although it allowed him to extend his life, it also exhausted his potential. He did not dare to believe that there was a medicine that could allow him to advance. Lei Xingfeng said, This is your last chance. If you can't advance this time, then I have no other choice. Tiger Love said, What kind of elixir is this? It can help us advance? Lei Xingfeng said, You'll know once you try. If you don't, then you'll really be waiting for death. I believe that none of you are willing to wait for death. Mad Eagle said, Of course. No matter what it is, it's worth a try. Even if you fail, it's not a big deal. Jean Dia did not know how precious the 10,000-year spirit liquid was. He had never come into contact with it. He also did not know that Wu Yang relied on it to advance to Tao Lord. Of course, Lei Xingfeng would not say this. This item was enough to attract the attention of many experts. If it was exposed, then his days would be difficult. Therefore, Lei Xingfeng was determined not to say what elixir it was. He smiled and said, "Uncle Jean, I'm using you as a test subject. Don't blame me, haha." Jean Dia laughed and said, "Haha, don't worry. I won't blame you anymore. Even if I die, it's not a big deal. I've lived long enough." He was very open-minded. Tiger Love said, "I believe in a phone. I believe that he won't harm us." Mad Eagle said, "Why don't I try it first?" Jean Dia hurriedly stopped him and said, "Let me try first. I'm old. Of course I have to taste the good stuff first." AI Sean said, "No matter what, we're all peak ninth ring sages, and we've been stuck in this realm for many years, unable to break through. This might be a good opportunity. Cultivating here is different from our hometown. So let's stop fighting and let old Jean do it." Jean Dia said, "Okay, shall we start now?" Lei Xingfeng said, "Let's go to the back." At this time, Jean Depang ran out. He was already in ninth ring sages, but he hadn't reached peak ninth ring yet. Therefore, he didn't have to worry about advancing for now. He was very curious, so he followed them to the backyard. After finding an empty space, Jean Depang deliberately moved a large blue stone and placed it on the ground. He carefully spread a layer of animal skin over it and said, "It's good to sit here." Jean Dia sat down and adjusted himself. He said, "What should we do?" Lei Xingfeng asked, "Are you familiar with the records of the basic cultivation method?" Jean Dia smiled bitterly and said, "Yes, very familiar. I've read it thoroughly. Unfortunately, I can only memorize it. I tried before, but I couldn't pass the first step." Lei Xingfeng smiled. He decided to use the barbaric method and directly use the 10,000-year spirit liquid to force a breakthrough. He was very confident in the 10,000-year spirit liquid. "Don't worry. Just bite the bottle and absorb the liquid. Then follow the basic cultivation method. I'm sure you'll succeed." Tiger Love, Mad Eagle, and his channel were all in disbelief. So easy? What kind of medicine was this? Jean Dia was very obedient. He took out the 10,000-year spirit elixir and directly stuffed it into his mouth. He bit down hard, and a crisp crunching sound rang out. In an instant, Jean Dia's face turned red. After all, his cultivation base was very low. When the 10,000-year spirit elixir entered his mouth, that huge energy immediately exploded in his mouth. Chapter 5:24. The reason why spirit items were called spirit items was because they contained powerful life force. Jean Dia's depleted life force began to surge at this moment. It was as if a dried-up riverbed was suddenly flooded with a large amount of fresh water. Jean Dia's aura seemed to have changed. Spitting out the dregs in his mouth, Jean Dia immediately immersed himself in cultivation. His Inli became active at this moment, and the nearly depleted Inli also began to rapidly strengthen. Jean Dia's Inli was actually on the verge of collapse. He had originally relied on the Inli ring to forcefully construct it, and then relied on the Inli ring to forcefully raise its quality. Now, the entire Inli ring was filled with cracks. He didn't dare to release his Inli ring to fight at all. Just like him, the Inli ring was filled with an aged aura. When the 10,000-year spirit liquid entered his body, the first thing to benefit was his life force, followed by his Inli ring. Like a withered tree receiving spring, the entire Inli ring glowed with a new light. When the Inli ring recovered to its peak, Jean Dia advanced step by step according to the basic cultivation method. Lei Xingfeng, Tiger Love, Mad Eagle, Ishanel, and Jean Depang all stared nervously at Jean Dia. When Jean Dia's body overflowed with life force, other than Lei Xingfeng, everyone was extremely shocked. This spirit liquid was terrifying. It was an absolute treasure that could actually increase one's life force. The 10,000-year spirit liquid's immense power quickly repaired all the flaws in Jean Dia's body, as well as his missing life force. This process was extremely short. As Jean Dia cultivated, he felt his life force surging to the extreme for the first time. At this moment, he also had the confidence to advance. After all, after cultivating for so many years, cultivation had long become his instinct. Even though he was using a new cultivation method, he didn't feel any discomfort. Slowly, an aura surged from Jean Dia's body. Although this aura was still very weak, Lei Xingfeng could already feel the potential within. He whispered, "There's hope." Jean Depeng whispered, "A phone, what's that?" He was referring to the 10,000-year spirit liquid. Seeing Jean Dia crush the bottle in his mouth immediately changed his entire being. To Jean Depeng, this was definitely a temptation. Lei Xingfeng smiled and said, "Don't worry when you reach the peak of the 9th ring. Once you want to advance, come find me. I'll leave one for you." Jean Depeng was one of the first people to follow him. In Lei Xingfeng's house, he was the most popular person. Anyone who came to Lei Xingfeng's house was received by him. Jean Depeng was overjoyed upon hearing this and repeatedly expressed his thanks. He was no fool. Seeing Jean Dia's transformation, he knew that this thing was definitely a heaven-defying treasure. Tiger Love, Mad Eagle, and Ashanel's expressions became more serious, but their eyes were filled with ecstasy. Once Jean Dia advanced, it meant that they could also advance. If even someone like Jean Dia, who was on the verge of death, could advance, then there would be no problem for them. Finally, Jean Dia's seal flew out. He needed to repair his seal. His seal was already on the verge of collapse. In the past, it was very difficult to repair it. This time, he had another chance to repair it. Of course, for Jean Dia, he had already prepared it long ago. It was just that he had never used it. He thought that he would never use it in this lifetime. Who would have thought that he would have another chance? Repairing his seal was actually very fast. All kinds of materials were thrown out and directly absorbed by the seal. Relying on the changes brought by the 10,000-year spirit liquid, Jean Dia didn't hesitate or delay. It only took him a few hours to restore his seal. The most important thing for a secret sect cultivator was the seal. Once the seal was restored, Jean Dia would completely recover. His already deteriorating body would also rapidly recover. The two were almost synchronized. Jean Dia noticed it at the first moment, and a trace of ecstasy appeared on his face. This was because he knew that there was a great chance for him to advance. Moreover, it was different from his previous cultivation method. Even if he didn't advance, he wouldn't die. If he used his previous cultivation method to advance, like Feng Qinzong, if he didn't advance, then there was only one consequence: death. His nervousness immediately dissipated. Once he relaxed, advancing became much easier. After 2 full days, Jean Dia relied on the power of the 10,000-year spirit liquid to advance to the early stage of true monarch. The only pity was that most of the power of the 10,000-year spirit liquid was used to repair his seal and body. The remaining power was basically used up after he advanced to true monarch. If he waited a few more years, even if he had the 10,000-year spirit liquid, he would only be able to repair his body and seal. It would be really difficult for him to advance. At that time, even if he had 2 vials of the 10,000-year spirit liquid, it would be useless. For anyone who used the 10,000-year spirit liquid, the first time would be the most effective. It would be very difficult to have the same effect as the first time. Therefore, this thing was best used to advance. It could also be used a second time, but the effect wouldn't be as good as the first time. When the huge aura spread out, Jean Dia's eyes flickered with tears. His heart wasn't as calm as he looked on the surface. In fact, he was still afraid of death. Being able to escape this calamity naturally made him very emotional and excited. Advancing successfully meant that Jean Dia's life would be extended and his cultivation path would continue. At this moment, he was incomparably glad. Choosing to follow Lei Xingfeng back then was a wise decision. Mad Eagle, Tiger Love, and Ashanel were also very excited. If Jean Dia could advance, then they wouldn't have any problems. Jean Depeng's mouth was wide open. Jean Dia actually advanced? This was simply inconceivable to the extreme. He was clear about Jean Dia's situation. In these years, Jean Dia rarely went out. He spent more time at home than outside. It could be said that he was just waiting to die at home. This was something Jean Dia had long since admitted. Jean Dia's advancement to true monarch was completely different from Wu Yang's advancement to Dao monarch. After all, true monarchs and Dao monarchs were 2 levels apart. Therefore, advancing to true monarch wasn't that complicated. Jean Dia used a total of 10 days to completely advance. Of course, he still had many things to do, such as consolidating his cultivation base, learning new combat skills, resetting his seal, and so on. Mad Eagle, Tiger Love, and his channel returned. Seeing that Jean Dia had successfully advanced, they couldn't sit still. In any case, with the 10,000-year spirit liquid, advancing wouldn't be a problem. The 3 of them didn't need Lei Xingfeng's protection. They returned to their own residences and officially entered seclusion to advance. Lei Xingfeng, on the other hand, went to Wu Yang's residence. After advancing to Dao monarch, Wu Yang's appearance had changed greatly. His original face was too feminine. Ordinary women would definitely feel inferior to him. After advancing to Dao monarch, although his appearance was still handsome, there was an additional sense of dignity and solemnity, especially the aura that was unintentionally leaked out. Only true monarchs and heaven monarchs could withstand it. Gucci's face was stiff from smiling recently. He was really happy in his heart. He had finally advanced to the peak of heaven monarch. This was too important for him. His position in the secret sect was once again stabilized. Wu Yang sat in the middle. He now had the aura of a Dao monarch. After Lei Xingfeng came in, he sat beside him. Wu Yang smiled and said, "Afeng, this time we're going to the center of the continent. Will you be staying at home or coming with me?" Towards Exine Feng, he was very grateful. If it wasn't for the 10,000-year spiritual liquid Exine Feng gave him, he was certain that he wouldn't have been able to pass the test. Once he advanced, it would be the day of his death. He wouldn't have been able to successfully advance. Just this point alone meant that Lei Xingfeng's contribution couldn't be ignored. Be it Wu Yang or Gucci, they both regarded Lei Xingfeng as the most important member of the secret sect. Lei Xingfeng said, "Of course I will go with you. I don't want to stay at home." Staying at home was too boring. Wu Yang nodded and said, "Okay, I plan to bring 2 or 3 people with me. However, someone has to stay at home." Gucci said, "I still need some time to consolidate my cultivation, so I won't be going this time." Gao Yi said, "I'll go too. I'm used to being a wanderer. It's annoying to always live in the same place." Wu Yang smiled and said, "Okay, who else wants to go?" Lei Xingyao said, "I'll go with Big Brother." She was a peak true monarch and wasn't weak. However, because she was a wood cultivator, she wasn't good at fighting. Lei Xingfeng said, "Okay, little sister wants to go and relax." Everyone in the secret sect knew that Lei Xingfeng spoiled his little sister to the bone. Basically, she could do whatever she wanted. No matter what, as long as it was possible, Lei Xingfeng would agree. Wu Yang said, "Then it's settled. The 4 of us will go together. A Dao Lord Patriarch, 2 heavenly monarchs, and a peak true monarch." This combination had no problem protecting themselves. Moreover, they had the mirror realm and could escape at any time. Thunderstorm said, "I'll stay at home too. I can control the restrictions of the camp." Wu Yang was satisfied. With a lightning-type heavenly monarch like Thunderstorm, there shouldn't be much of a problem. Together with the peak heavenly monarch Gucci, there were 2 heavenly monarchs guarding the camp. As long as a large sect didn't attack, they would be safe. After arranging the camp, Wu Yang said, "Okay, let's go." Wu Yang and the others walked out. As soon as they stepped out of the gate, Blackbird landed on Lei Xingfeng's shoulder and said, "Bring Bird." Actually, everyone knew that Blackbird was quite strong now. It was an important force that could be used. Wu Yang said, "Bring it. Bird is our hidden strength, hee." Lei Xingfeng nodded. "Okay, but Bird, listen to my orders. If you cause trouble, I'll throw you into the mirror realm." Blackbird said impatiently, I know, I'm not that stupid." Linling's head popped out of Lei Xingyao's shoulder. She shrieked, "Ying, you're a stupid bird." Without waiting for Bird to reply, she disappeared. She was still holding a grudge. This stupid bird wanted to eat her, so she would find a chance to scold it. Chapter 5:25. The blackbird chirped angrily, but it wanted to curse back, but Lin Ling wasn't here. It couldn't just curse at Lei Xian Yao. That would be asking for death. Lei Xian Yao wasn't weak, and even Lei Xingfeng wouldn't agree. Wu Yang smiled and said, "Okay, stop bickering." He flew into the air, identified the direction, and flew towards the east. Lei Xingfeng, Gao Yi, and Lei Xian Yao followed and flew into the distance. The blackbird didn't land on Lei Xingfeng's shoulder this time, but instead flew into the air with the four. They didn't see anyone along the way, and after flying for 10 days, Lei Xingfeng finally sighed. "The place we're at is indeed an abandoned wasteland. There's nothing here." Wu Yang smiled. "It's not that there's nothing here. Not to mention the ore vein you found. Even our harvest from the ancient ruins was worth it." After passing through a gravel field similar to the Gobi Desert, this area was rather large, and the ground was filled with all sorts of pits and large trenches. When Lei Xingfeng first saw it, he knew at a glance that there used to be many mines here, but they were all abandoned, and there were remnants of wooden houses and rotting with fragments on the ground. Lei Xingfeng could also see some faint light. These should be the remnants of ores that had no value to be mined. Wu Yang said, "This area used to have many ores, but it's a pity that they've all been dug up. No wonder our place is so desolate, and no cultivators go there." Gao Yi smiled. "When the resources of this continent are all dug up, this continent will completely decline." This distance took the four people and the bird 2 full days to fly out. Gradually, the surrounding environment began to change. First, it was a large patch of grass. Then it was a small bush, and finally it became a continuous forest, and the forest became more and more lush. From time to time, they could see the light of treasures in the forest, so Lei Xingfeng would often bring Lei Xian Yao down to dig up all sorts of herbs, some of which were precious spirit herbs. The amount was so large that it made Lei Xingfeng and Lei Xian Yao speechless. It was just too rich. Lei Xingfeng found a lot of small ore veins and recorded them in the map of the Star Python record. These could all be excavated, and although they weren't big, they were still very important to the hidden sect. The entire secret sect was now very poor. Coming here, due to the large-scale advancement, they had used up most of the materials in the secret sect. Even Xian Feng had used up most of the materials he had collected. One had to know that he had a lot of people under him. If each of them used up a bit, the total amount of materials added up would be a terrifying amount. Wu Yang was the same. He became a Tao Lord ancestor and used up most of the materials he collected for hundreds of years. In addition to the needs of the people in the hidden sect, he was now even worse than Lei Xingfeng, so he didn't have any materials left. Lei Xingfeng recorded all the ore veins that were worth excavating, since there were a lot of idle cultivators in the hidden sect. When the time came, they would be given out as missions to the hidden sect. This forest was very large, and the terrain was very complicated. There were a few cracks in the ground that formed a large canyon, which was very spectacular. There were many veins and spirit herbs here, and the closer they flew to the center of the continent, the more materials there were. After flying through the forest area, Lei Xingfeng had already recorded a lot, and the Star Python record was densely packed with all kinds of ore veins. As they continued to fly, they saw a line of snow in the distance, which should be a mountain range, and from experience, they knew that the mountain range was very high. Gao Yi was happy when he saw the line of snow. He was an ice cultivator, and when he saw snow, he felt a natural sense of intimacy. Lei Xingyao's little face wrinkled. She was most afraid of the cold. The terrain began to rise and fall, and the ground was filled with streams and rivers. All kinds of water birds circled in the air, and the ground was actually a swamp. Lei Xingfeng knew that because they were flying in the air, if they walked on the ground, this path would be very difficult, and it would definitely be very difficult. The mountain grew taller as they got closer. The four of them flew to the foot of the mountain and looked up. Half of the mountain was covered in white snow, and they couldn't see the end of it on either side, so they didn't know the name of this mountain range. Wu Yang said, "Let's rest for a while and eat something." The four of them sat down, and Lei Xingfeng busied himself with boiling water. There was plenty of water here, and it was all melted water from the snow mountain. It was cold and sweet, perfect for making tea. Unfortunately, in this world, Lei Xingfeng had never had a sip of tea. There was no tradition of drinking tea here, but drinking wine was normal. After cooking a large pot of meat dishes, the four of them quickly ate and drank. This place wasn't suitable for eating slowly. The black bird went to find food by itself. It rarely let Lei Xingfeng feed it now, and its appetite was getting bigger and bigger. Even if Lei Xingfeng fed it, it was just a snack to it. This time, the blackbird flew above the river, specifically fishing for food. Others weren't interested, but Lei Xingyao felt that it was very fun, so she also followed it to the river, holding a meat pancake in her hand, eating while watching the show. Even Lin Ling hid in her collar, peeking out her small head to peek. The blackbird opened its mouth and shot out an electric current, which turned into a layer of electric net when it reached the surface of the water. Then they saw densely packed fishes being electrocuted and flipped over on the surface of the water. There were big and small fishes, some were as long as 5 or 6 meters, and the small ones were even flipped over. Then the black bird turned into a giant bird and quickly pecked along the river surface. Lin Ling was scared out of her wits. This bad bird's strength was too strong, too scary. She kept letting out uneasy cries. Lei Xingyao watched in high spirits, clapping from time to time. "Bird Butte, you're so strong." The blackbird's spirit was immediately lifted. Hearing someone's praise, it didn't know north, south, east, west. It proudly cawed and ate the big fishes energetically. In just a moment, the fishes that were electrocuted woke up. One by one, they quickly dove into the water to escape. After releasing electricity a few times, the black bird accidentally ate too much, and for a moment its body couldn't shrink. It wobbled on the ground, looking like a giant duck walking, swaying left and right, looking very funny, making Lei Xingyao giggle. Lei Xingfeng also laughed loudly. He teased, "Bird Butte, you're so strong. You actually learned to walk like a duck. Haha. Are you still the majestic and heroic Bird Butte? Don't tell me you've degenerated into a poultry. Ha 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 ha." The black bird was very helpless. Lei Xingyao's praise just now made it forget itself. It kept on showing off, and in the end it ate until it was full. Thinking about it, it wobbled back to the river. This time, even Wu Yang and Gao Yi were attracted by it. Wu Yang said, "What does it want to do?" Gao Yi said, "Does it want to eat more?" Lei Xingfeng laughed. "Who knows? Probably it wants to drink some water to help with digestion." Finally, the black bird turned back into a small bird, flying to the side of the four people and landing. Lei Xingfeng laughed. "Hey, Bird Butte, if you spit out, why do you have to destroy the evidence?" The black bird said, "That's the bird coughing. Okay. Spitting out is disgusting. Don't you understand?" Everyone laughed. Wu Yang shook his head. "What a clown." Lin Ling and Lei Xingyao's collar said softly, "Stupid bird, ing, really stupid." The black bird was furious. It spread its wings and flew up. It shouted, "Little guy, come out. Let the bird eat you." Under Lei Xingyao's protection, Lin Ling became a lot braver. She said, Ing, shameless stupid bird, you only know how to bully people. Ing, big sister, big brother, will beat you up." She hid in Lei Xingyao's collar. Even if the black bird had the guts, it would not dare to offend Lei Xingyao, so it only circled in the air and threatened Lin Ling. Just talking and not acting would not scare Lin Ling. Once or twice she would be scared, but after a few times, she would not be scared anymore. At first, everyone was still interested in the two fellows' quarrel, but soon they were sick of it. Lei Xingfeng persuaded Lin Ling to go back, and Lei Xingfeng was much more simple and violent. "Shut up, or else I will tie your mouth." The black bird shut its mouth, feeling wronged, but it still muttered softly. She was the one who started it, and now a strange bird. It is so unfair. Bullying birds. Lei Xingfeng also found it funny. He did not expect the blackbird and Lin Ling to be so incompatible. He said, "Okay, Will it kill you to make way for Lin Ling? The black bird mumbled. She won't. Bird will. It will anger me to death. Lei Xingfeng ignored it. He said, Ancestor, I wonder if there are any sects in this mountain. Wu Yang said, It depends on whether the mountain is rich in resources. If it is very rich, then there is probably one. If it is very rich, then there will be more than one. Gao Yi said, The practitioners here are very arrogant. Even if their strength is not good, they are still extremely arrogant. Lei Xingfeng said, As long as they do not provoke us, everything will be fine. We do not cause trouble. We are not afraid of trouble, of course. It is best to avoid conflict. After all, we are outsiders. After resting, everyone continued on their way, flying towards the mountain peak. There are still trees at the foot of the mountain. Halfway up the mountain, there were only some shrubs and weeds left. At the snow line, there were only some moss and low weeds left. Soon, the four of them flew to the snow line. The ground was covered in thick snow. After flying for a few minutes, the four of them finally stood at the peak. What entered their eyes was the peak. Gao Yi even flew up to the sky to look, only to see that below were densely packed snowy peaks. One could not see the end of it. Three sides were mountains and precipitous ridges. Only the road behind was an endless forest. Gao Yi landed and said, I don't know how far we have to go to get out. I feel that there will definitely be sects here. Lei Xingfeng said, The mountain area is very big. We may not be able to meet. Chapter 5:26. This world was indeed big. Just for this continent alone, it was very normal to not see a single person within a few hundred miles. It was not normal to see people. As for the mountainous areas, it was even more rare to see people. Unless Wu Yang and the others bumped into a cultivation sect nearby, it was possible to meet other cultivators. However, in the wilderness of this continent, Lei Xingfeng had met two cultivators, and the results were not good. In the end, in order to establish a foothold, they even directly destroyed a small sect. Therefore, whether it was Wu Yang or Lei Xingfeng, they maintained a high level of vigilance against the cultivators here. Once the other party showed malice, they would not hesitate to kill. In this unfamiliar place, they could not act calmly and could only use force to solve all problems. The blackbird said, Bird will scout ahead. Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, Be careful. Don't look at how he often scolded Blackbird, but towards Blackbird, he was still very fond of it. Of course, he was very protective of it. Blackbird was also very smart. It knew when to play with Exine foam and when to do things seriously. Wu Yang nodded and said, Bird Butte is really good. Fortunately, Bird Butte had flown far away, or this guy would be showing off again. Lei Xingfeng said, Let's follow. The blackbird flew towards the depths of the mountains. This thing naturally chose the right path. In the sky, it knew more than humans. Just by instinct, it was stronger than Lei Xingfeng and the others. Flying down from the top of the mountain, the blackbird chose a large ice canyon. It did not want to fly high. If it flew high, not only would it be conspicuous, but it would also be easy to be a target. The blackbird grasped this very well. It quickly entered the ice canyon and then flew close to the side of the canyon. Wu Yang and the others followed closely. The blackbird did not fly fast. It knew that if it flew fast, it would have little ability to adapt. If it was a little slower, it would have a way to escape if it encountered danger. Lei Xingfeng landed in the canyon. There was a strange feeling in front of his eyes. He had long been used to this feeling. He hurriedly said, Bird Butte, fly slower, fly slower. As he spoke, his eyes were already spitting out silver light. In an instant, he saw a strong light at the bottom of the canyon. It was a long belt of light, crisscrossing the bottom of the canyon. This was a large vein of ore. Although he did not know what ore it was, he knew that it should be very precious. Weon said, What's wrong? Lei Xingfeng said, Let's go down to the bottom of the canyon. Gao Yi said, Did you find any treasure? Exine Feng nodded. There is, but I don't know if it's a mine. Wu Yang called out, Bird Butte, don't fly forward, stay on guard. The blackbird was very happy to accept the mission. Hearing this, it cawed twice and flew up. Lei Xingfeng, Wu Yang, Gao Yi, and Lei Xingfeng quickly landed at the bottom of the canyon. This was a world of ice and snow. There was also a thick layer of ice and snow on the ground. Lei Xingfeng said, "We have to remove this layer of ice." Gao Yi laughed. "Let me do it." The other three immediately dodged. Gao Yi stood on the ice and forcefully stomped his foot, saying, "Open!" Kacha's sounds rang out. In an instant, a crack appeared on the ground. Gao Yi stretched out his hand, and two large illusory hands directly inserted into the crack. Gao Yi was instantly suspended a meter above the ground. He then shouted, "Come! Home!" A huge crack appeared in front of everyone. This layer of ice was not very thick, only 3 to 4 meters deep. After being removed by Gao Yi, the black soil on the ground was revealed. With this opening, the others worked together. The large illusory hands flew randomly, and the layer of ice was forcefully removed. Then, the illusory hands directly inserted into the ground. In an instant, the soil on the ground was also removed, revealing the gravel below. At this time, Lei Xingfeng could already clearly see the shining light on the gravel. This gravel was the ore. Wu Yang jumped into the hole and reached out to pick up a stone, saying, "This is the ore? What kind of ore is this?" Lei Xingfeng also jumped down. He also picked up a piece of ore and carefully examined it. Because of the information he obtained from the ancient ruins, Lei Xingfeng quickly recognized that this was an ore used to make ancient crystals. In the past, the Sky Evolution Crystal and Hexagonal Crystal were all invented by later generations and were used to make energy-type crystals. There was no such thing in the ancient era, but there was a type of crystal that relied on this ore to refine. In other words, this ore was a raw material for making ancient crystals, and it was one of the main materials. It was definitely something good. This kind of large or vein was very easy for Tao Lords and Heaven Lords to excavate, especially under the layer of ice. If it was an ordinary low-level cultivator, it would be quite troublesome. After all, ordinary low-level cultivators would need to rely on tools to excavate, but Wu Yang and the others did not need them at all. The stone was full of transparent crystals, as if there were countless tiny crystals embedded in the stone. Of course, this thing was definitely not a crystal, but a brocade stone. Under the sunlight, the whole stone shone like a brocade. This is brocade stone, an ore used to refine ancient crystals. It is quite a good thing. Should we excavate immediately? If this thing is discovered by other cultivators, not even a speck of it will be left for us. Lei Xingfeng said with a smile. Wu Yang said, "Then let's dig. No matter what the material is, the more the better. We are too poor." Lei Xingfeng looked around and demarcated the area. He said, "We will each take a section and take away the main part. The rest will be excavated by others." This or vein was in the shape of a leaf. It was a mane or belt, and then there were many small or veins that extended out. They did not have the mood to excavate slowly, so these small or veins were excavated by cultivators from the mirror realm. The 4 of them immediately spread out and started digging crazily. Relying on the illusory giant hand, they forcefully opened up the ground and dug out large chunks of ore, directly putting them into the hidden Luin space along with the gravel and soil. When they had the time, they would come back to look at them. Lei Xingfeng combined with his true body to form a giant. This was the most satisfying way to excavate. His 2 hands were like the giant excavators in his previous life. He inserted one hand into the ground and pulled with force. A few tons of ore were put into the hidden Luin space. Lei Xingfeng was the slowest, but she had help. Lei Xingfeng sent the blackbird to help. Although the blackbird and Lin Ling were enemies, it did not dare to offend Lei Xingyao. She was the little sister that its master doted on the most. If it bullied Lei Xingyao, it would be courting death. The blackbird was not that dumb. The man and the bird's speed also increased quickly. This vein was quite big. Even if their hidden Lin space was very big, it could not hold this amount of ore. After all, each of their hidden Lin space had other things to store. Lei Xingfeng said, "I will go back to the mirror realm and transfer the ore to the warehouse first." Weiyang also noticed this problem. This was unimaginable before. In the past, the so-called ore veins could be cleaned by a few people. Well, had he ever seen such a large amount of ore? He said, "Okay, you go first. I will go in a bit." The four took turns going back. The Mirror Realm had quite a few large warehouses. Most of them were built underground. The area and space were large enough to store all sorts of ores. In a short period of time, the four of them had filled up a huge warehouse. The efficiency of the four of them was simply too high. Gao Yi sighed. In the past, without the Mirror Realm, even if we found such a huge ore vein, we could only fill up our hidden Lun space. We probably had to give up on the rest. Wu Yang said, "This is the benefit of having a secret door. More people is more important. For a ghost like you, even if you see something good, you can't take it away." Lei Xingfeng laughed. "He doesn't have much use for that, or it's fine as long as it's enough." Wu Yang said, "How can it be enough? It's just like when we crossed the bridge. We thought we had enough food and water, but we didn't expect to be in such a mess. If you didn't insist on preparing so much food in advance, many more people would have died along the way. There will never be enough resources." Lei Xingfeng deeply felt these words. There would never be enough resources, especially when there was a secret door. No matter how many resources there were, it would never be enough. Moreover, even if they dug up a lot, they could still exchange it for other resources. It was impossible to get all the resources. Some things were not so easy to find. Lei Xingfeng said, "Then work hard to find and dig." A few kilometers long main vein was dug up by 4 people and 1 bird in 7 days. Of course, there were still some ore veins left, but they didn't have to worry about it. There was no time to waste here. Lei Xingfeng notified the secret door and asked a few monarchs to bring a group of low-level practitioners out of the Mirror Realm to dig. He asked one of the monarchs to set up a secret door for communication. Once they dug up all the ore, they could all go back. After Wu Yang arranged everything, the 4 of them set off again. The blackbird was still scouting in front, and the 4 of them followed closely. A few days later, the 4 of them stopped in a canyon. This canyon was different from the ice canyon from last time. There were a lot of hot springs inside, and the surroundings were filled with all kinds of plants. Among them, there were quite a lot of precious spirit herbs. The environment here was special, and places with special environments usually had good things. Lei Xingyao was very happy. Accompanied by Lei Xingfeng, she picked and transplanted all kinds of spirit herbs. Lin Ling also hid in Lei Xingyao's collar and looked around. She was very alert to this unfamiliar place. However, her love for spirit herbs was even stronger than Lei Xingyao's. Often, when she saw spirit herbs, she would scream for a while. Then, the two found a hot spring surrounded by mist. In the white mist, they saw a small patch of flowers. Lin Ling exclaimed, "Lian Yanhua, it's Lian Yanhua. Ying, I want it." Then she rushed out. Lei Xingyao was shocked and immediately rushed over. A black shadow flashed, and then she heard Lin Ling scream. Chapter 5:27. Lei Xingfeng's body flashed and grabbed Lin Ling in his hand. A small black snake with the thickness of a chopstick and a foot long was coiled on the ripple pinch flower. Staring at Lin Ling screamed in fear. "What is this thing? So scary. Ying, it scared me to death." Lei Xingfeng stared at the small snake and said after a while, "It's a pity that this snake didn't become a spirit creature. It was only nourished by the ripple pinch flower and has a bit of intelligence." Lei Xianyao said, "Crush it to death. How dare it bite my Xiaoling?" She walked to Lei Xingfeng's side and took Lin Ling, comforting her softly. "Xiaoling, don't be scared, don't be scared." Lin Ling hugged Lei Xianyao's thumb and said, "Ripple pinch flower is good stuff. Ying, don't let it go." Lei Xingfeng shook his head and said, "Xiaoling, if my sister didn't take you in, you wouldn't have lived long in the wild." Lin Ling understood, but she didn't want to admit defeat and said, Ying, I'll be very, very careful. I won't be bullied by monsters." Lei Xingfeng flicked his finger and an arc of lightning shot out. Instantly, the small black snake was electrocuted to death. This kind of black snake, Unless it became a spirit creature, it wouldn't be able to escape from the hands of a cultivator. The ripple flower was a very precious spiritual herb. A mature ripple flower was as big as a bowl. It was divided into 3 colors: red, yellow, and white. The outer circle was red, the middle circle was yellow, and the center part was white. It was very beautiful as it flickered in and out of the white mist. Lin Ling said, "There shouldn't be any danger, right? Ying, let me handle this flower, okay?" Lei Xianyao said dotingly, Okay, I'll go check and see if there's any danger." How could Lei Xingfeng let his sister check? He said, I'll do it. He walked into the flower bushes and checked a little before saying, "It's fine. There are no other snakes here." Lin Ling cheered and flew from Lei Xianyao's hand and quickly landed on a ripple pinch flower. Lei Xingfeng and Lei Xingyao squatted down to see how Lin Ling handled it. Lin Ling waved her hand, and a needle-like thing appeared in her hand. She stuck the needle into the heart of the flower and sucked it with her mouth. It was actually a pipe-like needle. Moments later, Lin Ling's face showed an intoxicated expression. Yawn, delicious, delicious. Then she flew to another flower and continued drinking. Lei Xingfeng asked, "She's drinking nectar?" Lei Xianyao said, "I don't know, but Xiaoling seems very happy." Lei Xingfeng counted. There were about 100 flowers. Lin Ling didn't let a single one go. She sucked them one by one, and in half an hour, they flew shakily into Lei Xingfeng's hand. She mumbled, Ying, I drank until I'm full." Lei Xingfeng noticed that her belly was clearly bulging. Lin Ling said, "I'm so sleepy, I want to sleep, Yawn." Then, she curled up her body and fell asleep in Lei Xingyao's hand. If one listened carefully, they could even hear very light, snoring sounds. She was really cute to the extreme. Lei Xingyao carefully put Lin Ling into the wooden seal and said, "I'll handle the ripple pinch flowers." She took out the ebony box and carefully plucked the ripple pinch flowers. A wooden box could hold 10 ripple pinch flowers, and 10 wooden boxes were enough for her to collect them all. Afterwards, she set the coordinates of this place in her secret door so that she could come here anytime. She smiled and said, This is a good place. I can come here every year to collect." Due to the special environment of this flower, it couldn't be transplanted. It was already a spirit herb level plant. As long as the roots weren't damaged, they could be collected once a year. With other spirit herbs and spirit plants, this place was a natural cultivation garden. Lei Xingyao thought about it and still felt that it wasn't safe. She said, "Brother, can you set up a concealment restriction?" Lei Xingfeng smiled. "Little sister, do you want to monopolize this place?" Lei Xingyao nodded. "Of course, the environment here is very special. It can grow some good spirit herbs. Once the restriction is set up, I can still transplant some spirit herbs over." Lei Xingfeng thought for a moment and said, "MHM, I can set up a simple restriction so that people in the air can't see inside. However, if they fall, there's no way to stop them." Lei Xingyao said, "Set up a concealment restriction and a bigger restriction trap." Lei Xingfeng shook his head. "No need. If we're discovered, even if there's a restriction trap here, it will be broken by people. It's all up to luck." Lei Xingyao said helplessly, "MHM, if we're discovered, we won't be able to keep it. What a pity." Lei Xingfeng smiled. "It's not that hopeless. This is one of the thousands of canyons. It's impossible for practitioners to check every single one of them. The possibility of being discovered is very small. I'll go set up a concealment restriction." With the help of Wu Yang and Gao Yi, Lei Xingfeng quickly set it up. After a few hours, a simple concealment restriction was set up. Lei Xingfeng even flew up to the sky and looked down. There was a white fog below. It was impossible to see the inside of the canyon. This kind of fog was present in many canyons. If they didn't descend, they wouldn't know that there was a treasure below. Lei Xingyao happily stored the coordinates in her secret door. Through the mirror world, she could enter this place at any time. There were 70 to 80 hot springs in the canyon. Around 10 of them grew spirit herbs and spirit plants. Lei Xingyao carefully picked them and left behind enough roots to continue growing. She even moved the spirit herbs and spirit plants that could be transplanted to other hot springs. This way, she could expand the planting range of spirit herbs. The 4 people and 1 bird rested for 2 days before continuing to fly forward. The blackbird was very satisfied with this task and continued to fly with the 4 people. Along the way, Xian Feng's horizons were truly broadened. After flying for a few hours, he would be able to see some or veins or strong glows. Being busy recording and excavating, their speed naturally decreased. Originally, they would have been able to fly for 10 days, but now, after 100 days, they still weren't able to complete the journey. Wu Yang, Gao Yi, Lei Xingfeng, and Lei Xingyao were very excited. They had never seen a place with such abundant resources in their lives. It was simply too much for the eyes to take in. There were all kinds of veins, all kinds of spirit herbs and treasures. This made them very clear that there must be a practitioner sect here. Of course, without Lei Xingfeng's eyes, it would be very difficult to find these veins and treasures. This mountainous area was really too big. It was impossible to search one by one. To find these resources to a large extent, it required considerable luck. After Lei Xingfeng entered the mountainous area, he was like a fish in water. A large number of veins were found and marked in the topographic map of the Star Python record. At the same time, the precise location was recorded. As long as the secret door was opened in the mirror world, they could accurately find the veins. Halfway through, Wu Yang and the others returned to the mirror world and began to assign tasks. Some important veins had to be quickly excavated. Who knew if someone would beat them to it? This was the most important task. The entire secret sect was mobilized. Of course, ordinary people didn't need to go. At the very least, they had to be first ring sage or above. Fortunately, Lei Xingfeng and the others recruited many experts when they crossed the natural moat. This was very important to the secret sect. First, they would excavate the important veins, then the rare veins, and then the ordinary ones. In any case, according to Wu Yang's arrangement, all the resources must be stored in the mirror world even if they had to mobilize all the practitioners. This was their purpose in coming to this continent. As they went deeper into the mountainous area, more and more veins were found. It was so dense that after flying for a few hours, they could find a lot of veins. Not only was Lei Xingfeng surprised, but Wu Yang and Gao Yi were also surprised. The resources here were too abundant. Just as Lei Xingfeng kept marking the Star Python record, the blackbird suddenly flew back. He said, "There's a town over there. GA, this bird thinks it's a town. There are many people moving around. This bird felt something was wrong, so it flew back." Lei Xingfeng said, "How many people are there? Is there a sect here?" The blackbird said, "It doesn't seem to be a sect. The town is very small. There are only a few dozen wooden houses. If it's a sect, this bird feels different. Gee, this bird thinks it's more like a camp." Lei Xingfeng said, "How far is it?" The blackbird said, "Do you see that snow mountain? You'll see it when you fly over it." Wu Yang said, "Let's go. Let's fly to the snow mountain and take a look." For people, and a bird quickly flew up. After a while, they stood on the side of a giant ice block and looked down carefully. With Lei Xingfeng's vision, he immediately knew the reason. He said, "This is a vein of ore. The camp below should be the people who excavate the ore." He raised his eyes and looked around. He couldn't help but be surprised. My goodness, there are at least a dozen veins here. This is a gathering place for ores. No wonder they didn't look elsewhere. This place is enough to excavate for a long time. Wu Yang said, "More than a dozen veins? What kind of are they? Are they precious?" Looking at the light of the treasure, Lei Xingfeng couldn't help but sigh. He said, "It's incredible. Most of them are quite precious. Moreover, they are deep underground. It's a large and rich ore. Compared to the ore vein that was previously excavated, it was like the difference between a small stream and a surging river. The two were definitely not on the same level." After Lei Xingfeng saw it clearly, he couldn't help but drool. It was too tempting. After thinking about it, he gave up the temptation and said, "Even if we snatch it, the chances of success are too small. We don't know how strong the other party is. I think we should give up. Because there were relatively more resources, Lei Xingfeng was not willing to compete. Once a battle started, the higher-ups like them would be fine. However, the other cultivators in the secret sect might not be so. There would definitely be casualties. At this time, the secret sect was still very weak and its foundation was not stable. Starting a battle was not a wise thing to do. Lei Xingfeng said again, "Founder, what do you think?" Chapter 528. Wu Yang's thoughts were similar to Lei Xingfeng's. He said, "Forget it. Let's give up for now." Gao Yi said, "Should we make contact with them?" Lei Xingfeng said, "Contact means battle. We've already made contact twice, and the results weren't so good." Wu Yang said, "Yeah, they seem to have a natural hostility towards outsiders. Even if we're of the same race, it's still the same. Forget it. Let's leave this place." Lei Xingfeng looked deeply at the spreading treasure light below. He swallowed his saliva and said, "Let's go, what a pity." This was the first time he had seen so many mineral veins tangled together, and there was no lack of mineral veins with extremely strong treasure light. It would be a lie to say that he wasn't envious. The 4 people and 1 bird retreated down the snow mountain, following the valley behind and flying toward the south. The black bird was still in front, and Lei Xingfeng and the others were behind. Only when they were 100 li away did Lei Xingfeng start recording. This place was the focus of his recording, and he would send people here to observe in the future. Every 10 li or tens of li, they would find various mineral veins. At the beginning, Lei Xingfeng was still a bit patient, recording even the smallest mineral veins. Later on, he gradually became impatient and basically stopped recording if it wasn't small or medium mineral veins. Some normal mineral veins were recorded, but they were marked with unimportant marks. Only after excavating the precious mineral veins, and if there was time and manpower, would they consider excavating them. Of course, if they found an especially precious mineral vein, Lei Xingfeng wouldn't mark it on the map, but immediately start excavating and storing it in the hidden Lun space. Who knew if they would find it again in the future? So the harvest along the way made Wu Yang and Gao Yi happy. Wu Yang praised, "Afeng, your luck seems to be better than before." In fact, he knew that Lei Xingfeng must have his own special skills to be able to find the mineral deposit so easily. However, as smart as he was, he would never mention it. Everyone had their own secrets, so why should he expose them? After about 2 months, Lei Xingfeng and the other 3 finally passed through the snow mountain area. Outside of the mountain area was a large swamp. The ice and snow that flowed down from the snow mountain completely submerged the area. The ground was crisscrossed with rivers and lakes, forming a large wetland. There was a rich variety of species here, and the terrain was complex. If they wanted to pass through this area, they could only fly. As soon as he flew to the swamp wetland, the sky became gloomy. Large dark clouds covered the sky. Suddenly, a bolt of lightning flashed across the distant sky. A loud clap of thunder rolled past. If it was his hometown, Lei Xingfeng might be very excited. However, after going to the magnetic storm mountain range, this kind of lightning and thunder no longer attracted him. The black bird squawk caw so weak. Lei Xingfeng laughed. "It's not weak. If you don't believe me, then rush in and take a look." The black bird wanted to show off. It said loudly, "Okay, let's see the bird." Its body flashed slightly and already flew far away. Its body began to grow. Like an eagle, the black bird directly rushed into the dark clouds. Seeing a bolt of lightning flash past, Lei Xingfeng, Wu Yang, Gao Yi, and Lei Xingyao all clearly saw the blackbird's figure in the lightning. Lei Xingfeng clicked his tongue and said, "This stupid bird, it wouldn't really run into the lightning, right?" The blackbird was indeed stupid. It didn't know that the lightning in the magnetic storm mountain range was specially formed through restrictions and terrain. That kind of lightning was controlled. For those who practiced the lightning system, that kind of lightning was most suitable for cultivation. However, the lightning in the wild was completely uncontrollable. The most frightening thing was that this lightning was incomparably violent. The black bird stupidly rushed in. Gotcha! Boom! The sound of thunder came from afar and rolled over their heads. It was as if the sky was going to be crushed. Hearing it made one's soul tremble. Caw! Caw! The last caw was simply a scream. Then the blackbird flashed and appeared in front of them. Lei Xingyao suddenly saw the blackbird and couldn't help but laugh. She also knew that this wasn't good and hurriedly covered her mouth. However, she also didn't expect that Lin Ling was hiding in her collar to watch the show. Lin Ling liked to watch the scenery. As long as there was a chance, she would slip out of the wooden seal and hide in Lei Xingyao's collar to secretly watch the outside. At this time, she also saw the blackbird. Lin Ling said, Ayaya, what kind of monster is this? The blackbird's appearance was a bit miserable. It flapped its wings, and all the dark blue feathers on its body stood up. It was as if it was shot by countless arrows. Wisps of green smoke came out from its head. Its mouth was chattering, Caw, why is it different from the magnetic storm mountain range? Caw, caw, why is there so little lightning? It almost killed this bird, caw, caw. Lei Xingfeng said, Who told you to rush in? If you used your real body, nothing would happen. How can there be someone as stupid as you? Only then did Lin Ling react. She said, Caw, caw, you are indeed a stupid bird. The blackbird was now more and more afraid of Lei Xingfeng. It didn't dare to say that it didn't care about him anymore. But Lin Ling wasn't afraid. It said, Caw, this bird wants to eat you. Lin Ling's neck shrunk back and said, Come and eat, stupid bird. Caw, caw. The blackbird was so angry that it cawed. At this time, heavy rain suddenly poured down. It felt as if the sky was leaking. Wu Yang said, Go down. The 4 people and 1 bird quickly flew down. In a few breaths, they were close to the ground. However, they couldn't find a place to land. There was rain everywhere, flowing on the ground. Gao Yi said, Follow me. As he spoke, he flew close to the ground. Lei Xingyao looked up at the sky and said, Be careful of the lightning. Even if it was a practitioner, being struck by lightning wouldn't feel good. Of course, Wu Yang and the others were very strong. Even if they were struck by lightning, it wouldn't be life-threatening. After all, it was impossible for every place to be flooded. Soon, Gao Yi saw a rocky ground that was slightly above the water surface. He said, It's there. The few of them quickly landed on the rocky ground. This was a rocky ground that was 1 meter above the water surface. The area was about a few dozen square meters. There were a few big trees blocking the view. The 4 of them came under the big trees. Lei Xingfeng quickly set up a wooden shed. This was a wooden shed that had been made long ago. It had 4 pillars and a roof. It could be set up in a few minutes. Standing in the wooden shed and looking at the heavy rain outside, Lei Xingfeng smiled and said, In the past, I used to run around outside, hoping for a thunderstorm day. Back then, my cultivation relied on a thunderstorm day to improve quickly. But how difficult is it to find a thunderstorm day? When I stopped looking, you see a heavy rain and thunderstorm day would arrive. Wu Yang said, This isn't strange. In the past, in order to find a material, I really ran to countless places, but I couldn't find it. Later on, I found it by chance. Then, that material appeared one after another. I really don't know whether to laugh or cry. Lin Ling hid in Xian Yao's collar and looked at the heavy rain. She said softly, This is a rainstorm. The lightning is so scary. Ying. Spirit creatures were naturally afraid of lightning. If they were struck by lightning, then it would be tragic. Thus, Lin Ling only looked for a moment before hiding in Xian Yao's wooden seal. It was too dangerous outside. Each of them took out a chair. Lei Xingfeng even took out a square table. The few of them sat and looked outside. Lei Xingfeng took out all kinds of food and said, Since we can't leave, then let's eat first. Everyone relaxed. Although lightning flashed and thunder rumbled outside the wooden shed, the 4 people and 1 bird were calm and unruffled. They ate the food and chatted happily. It was quite comfortable. The food that Lei Xingfeng took out were all exquisite food specially made by Jean Depang. The 4 of them ate with relish. Xian Yao grabbed a bag of candied fruit. This was secretly given to her by Jean Depang to curry favor with Xian Yao. This world didn't produce sugar. Sweet food was honey. Candied fruit made with honey was the best snack. It was Xian Yao's favorite treasure. The blackbird actually also liked to eat candied fruit, but it rarely had the chance to get it. It looked at Xian Yao eagerly. After a while, it said, "Give some to the bird. The bird also likes to eat this." It spread its wings and pointed at the candied fruit in Xian Yao's hand. Xian Yao wasn't stingy. She looked at the pitiful blackbird and chuckled. She raised her hand and threw a candied fruit at the blackbird. The blackbird opened its mouth and caught it. The blackbird didn't swallow it. Instead, it bit it repeatedly in its mouth. From an outsider's perspective, it looked like it was spitting it out and then bringing it back. This way, it could taste the sweetness of the honey. One candied fruit was enough for it to torment for a long time. The blackbird ate the candied fruit purely for the sweetness, not to fill its stomach. Thus, it was very patient. Lin Ling was inside the wooden seal. She knew what was going on outside. Hiding inside the wooden seal was very lonely. Thus, Lin Ling couldn't help but poke half of her head out of the collar. She said softly, "Sister, I want some too." Ing. Xian Yao found a piece of candied fruit the size of a pinky and carefully passed it to her. She said, "For you, be careful." Lin Ling immediately stretched out her slender arms and hugged the candied fruit. To Xian Yao, this was a very small candied fruit, but to Lin Ling, it was a big piece that needed to be hugged to be able to pick it up. Lei Xingfeng looked at Lin Ling curiously and said, "She can eat too?" Lin Ling's mouth was too small. She couldn't bite the meat at all. She could only stick out her tongue and lick the candied fruit. Immediately, she beamed with joy. Delicious, delicious. Lei Xingfeng realized that Lin Ling didn't like the candied fruit, but the honey on it. He had obtained a lot of honey in the past, and there was no lack of good honey. He even moved the bees into the mirror realm to raise them. These were all managed by Jean Depang's people. Every time they harvested honey, they would give him a lot. He took out a bottle of honey and passed it to Xian Yao. "Yao Yao, give this to Xiaoling. I think she will like it." Because the bottle was sealed very well, Lin Ling didn't know it was honey. She just licked the candied fruit enthusiastically. Chapter 529. Xian Yao could tell that Lin Ling liked the honey and not the fruit. She reached out and opened the bottle. Immediately, an extremely dense and sweet aroma spread out. Lin Ling seemed to have been struck by lightning. She held the fruit in her hands and was stunned. She stared at the bottle, and the fruit in her hands immediately fell down. She was in Xian Yao's collar, and the fruit in her hands slid down her collar. Xian Yao said, Xiaoling, the fruit fell into your clothes." Lin Ling wanted to pick up the fruit, but it was too late. The fruit kept falling down. Xian Yao said, Okay, don't worry about it. I'll find it myself later." Lei Xingfeng looked at Lin Ling's palm-sized body and said, "Little sister, how can I eat this? Such a small person, such a big bottle." He didn't say that if Lin Ling fell into the bottle, it wouldn't be strange if she drowned. Lin Ling protested, "You're bullying me." Ing, are you bullying me because I'm small?" Lin Ling reached out her small hand and pointed at the bottle. An extremely thin thread jumped out from the honey and flew out of the bottle. This thread was formed by the honey, and it formed a parabola. One end was on the surface of the honey, and the other end fell down. Lin Ling opened her mouth and sucked, and that thin thread fell into her mouth. She sucked in a third of the honey in one gulp. Xian Yao said in shock, "You eating so much, you'll be stuffed." Lin Ling sucked in 3 mouthfuls and sucked the entire bottle of honey in her mouth. Lei Xingfeng was dumbfounded. Wu Yang said, "She didn't eat it, but put it away." Lin Ling let out a small laugh and said, "I'm full from 1 drop of honey. Of course, I'll put it away first and eat it slowly in the future." Ing. Lei Xingfeng laughed. "Do you still want it? I have a few types of honey raised by bees, and they're all different. There's a type of honey that's made from honey collected in the garden. Xiaoling, do you want it?" Lin Ling said, Yes, hurry up and let me have a taste." She appeared to be very excited. Ever since she left the seal, she had been worrying about what to eat to feed herself. However, Lei Xianyao had a lot of spiritual herbs and spiritual plants that she could eat, but ever since she discovered the honey, she knew that she would be able to solve the problem of food in the future. Lei Xingfeng took out 5 or 6 bottles. He opened one first and said, "This is one kind. Try it first." One bottle after another was opened for Lin Ling to taste. Finally, Lin Ling chose the honey from the cultivation garden. This honey was brewed by bees after all sorts of spirit herbs bloomed. It contained the essence of spirit herbs and spirit plants, so it naturally attracted Lin Ling's love. This kind of honey was actually not suitable for making preserves. It was more suitable for concocting medicine. However, Xan Yao did not have a suitable formula, so this honey was saved. Lei Xingfeng took them all out and said, "You like these. They're all for you." Lin Ling let Lei Xingfeng open the bottles and suck them one by one. She didn't know where she put them. There were tens of big bottles, and they were all taken by her silently. Lin Ling didn't even let go of the other types of honey. Lei Xingfeng didn't know that after Lin Ling had this honey, other than eating it herself, she would also process it to produce some natural spiritual honey. It was the best food for Lin Ling. Of course, if someone asked her for it, she would give it to them. However, no one knew yet. However, once it was produced, it definitely wouldn't be able to hide it from Lei Xianyao. Lin Ling finally returned to the wooden seal with satisfaction. With the raw materials, she began to get busy. It was not like before, when she was lonely and empty in the wooden seal. Lin Ling was very happy now that she had something to do. Not long after, Xianyao noticed Lin Ling's actions and secretly discussed with her. As a natural spirit being, Lin Ling naturally knew how to process many spirit herbs and spirit plants. As for normal herbs and medicinal materials, she didn't care about them, but if it was spirit herbs and spirit plants, she could process them. Moreover, the processed spirit herbs and spirit plants not only retained their original medicinal power, but also enhanced their characteristics, which would be of great help to Xianyao. The rain was still pouring and was gradually about to drown the stone platform. The lightning gradually disappeared, and the entire world was white. The scenery 10 meters away was blurry. Lei Xingfeng said, "I don't know how long this rain will last. If we continue to stay here, we'll probably just be waiting. There's not much point. Let's go back to the mirror world first." With the mirror world, if the weather outside changed too much, they would have a place to rest. They wouldn't have to work so hard outside. Wu Yang looked at the rain and the rapidly rising water level. "Okay, let's go back first. We'll come back in 2 days." Everyone immediately returned to the mirror world. As for the wooden shack, Lei Xingfeng didn't even take it back. He just left it there. After returning to the mirror world, everyone went home. Lei Xingfeng brought Lei Xianyao back to the front yard. Jean Dia, Tiger Love, Mad Eagle, and Ishan were sitting in the wooden shack. When they saw Lei Xingfeng, they all stood up. With just a glance, Lei Xingfeng knew that they had all successfully advanced. He couldn't help but smile. "Congratulations, congratulations." After Jean Dia successfully advanced, his face looked like a young man. His body was surging with vitality. Lei Xingfeng knew that Jean Dia had finally passed this stage. Of course, compared to Tiger Love, Mad Eagle, and Ishan, Jean Dia was much weaker. After all, he had been forced to advance to the monarch realm. It would probably be very difficult for him to advance to the monarch realm in the future without any heaven-defying treasures. However, Jean Dia didn't care. He had never dreamed that he would be able to advance to the monarch realm. This had been a knot in his heart, and now that it had been completely untied, he planned to try his best to advance to the next level. Even if he couldn't advance, he would be satisfied. Mad Eagle, Tiger Love, and Ishan were completely different. The 3 of them still wanted to advance. With Lei Xingfeng's help, the 3 of them knew that they should still have some room for improvement. Lei Xingfeng was very happy. He had suddenly gained 4 monarchs. The strength of his faction was definitely the strongest in the secret sect. including the few monarchs that had joined before. Other than Lazi, the rest of the monarchs followed his faction. Just the monarchs alone had 8 people. If Lei Xingyao, who was a peak monarch, was included, Lei Xingfeng's faction had 9 monarchs and 3 monarchs. Their strength was unprecedentedly strong. Lei Xingfeng repeatedly congratulated them. Everyone sat down, and Lei Xingfeng said, "This time, we found a lot of mineral veins. Uncle Jean, you have to organize people to excavate. This is the Star Python record with the coordinates. You can accurately reach the destination from the Mirror Realm. Also, that area is a mountainous area, and it's very cold. Low-level disciples need to pay attention to keeping warm." Lei Xingfeng said as he made a copy of the Star Python record and handed it to Jean Dia. Jean Dia looked carefully and couldn't help but exclaim, "Wow, so many resource points." The Star Python record was densely packed with recorded mineral points, and there were even important points. Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, "Compared to the resources in our hometown, it's simply incomparable. This time Uncle Jean, Uncle Ing, and Uncle Tiger will all go. Ishan will stay at home. When the time comes, we'll rotate. Pay attention to the important points in the record and prioritize excavating. Also, be careful of local cultivators." Jean Dia nodded solemnly. He knew in his heart how important resources were to secret sections. Now that they had the Mirror Realm, they had brought out many ordinary people. Their foundation was still there. As long as they found a suitable base and then nurtured generation after generation, there would always be people with cultivation talent in every generation. This way, they could replenish the cultivator team and strengthen the secret sect. Those secret sects that lost their ordinary people could only gradually decline unless they found a new foundation. Although Lei Xingfeng didn't care much, he had his own ideas. For example, establishing a cultivation apprentice. Every child that reached the age of 6 would have to enter. In addition to various learning, they would also be taught the most basic combat skills. Even if ordinary people couldn't cultivate in the end, they would still become stronger. As for those with cultivation talent, even if their talent was ordinary when they reached the age of 16, they would be sent to a special place for cultivation, and there would be specialists to teach them. Of course, during this period, a large amount of resources would be needed. This was what the higher-ups had to worry about. After Lei Xingfeng's guidance, there were already a few hundred new people who had entered the cultivation team. Although they were only low-level cultivators such as Luan Masters, 100 Luan Masters, and 1,000 Luan Masters, this group of people was the next generation of the secret sect. Lei Xingfeng attached great importance to this generation. Moreover, they would start with the basic cultivation methods, which were completely different from the previous cultivation methods. Gucci was also focusing on the problem of cultivating disciples. After Lei Xingfeng established the cultivation apprentice system, he did the same. As time passed, Gucci also had a few hundred low-level disciples. In the entire secret sect, disciples were all treasures. As long as they found someone with cultivation potential, every direct disciple would fight for it. However, it was very difficult to fight against Gucci and Lei Xingfeng. Lei Xingfeng had a large number of ordinary people. For example, many people from Tiger Cliff Castle had moved into the Mirror Realm. Many people from Hong Tong's forces had also moved in. Therefore, Lei Xingfeng had taken up the majority of the basic population. After all, he had obtained the abnormal space of the Mirror Realm. At this time, Thunderstorm walked in. When he saw Lei Xingfeng and Lei Xingyao, he couldn't help but smile. He said, "You're back. Did you find anything good?" He knew that as long as Lei Xingfeng went out, he would be able to find a lot of good things. Lei Xingfeng smiled. "Not bad. I found a lot of mineral veins." "Yi, why are you here?" Thunderstorm said, "Let me tell you a piece of good news." Lei Xingfeng said, "What good news? What is it about?" Thunderstorm laughed. "It's about the magnetic storm mountains." Lei Xingfeng's eyes suddenly lit up. Chapter 530. Thunderstorm said, "I opened the door to the back of the mountain." Lei Xingfeng wanted to enter the back of the magnetic storm mountain range. He hurriedly asked, Is there a cultivation record? Thunderstorm smiled. Of course there is. Intermediate level cultivation technique. I finally found it. Here, this is the cultivation technique I recorded. Intermediate level lightning cultivation technique. Lei Xingfeng was overjoyed. This meant that he had room to continue improving his cultivation. He said, "Great, give it to me." He took the star python record and said, "Is this a copy for me?" Thunderstorm said, "Of course, this is a copy for you." Lei Xingfeng happily put away the cultivation technique. He was not in a hurry to look at it. Instead, he asked, "Ai, how did you get in?" "I remember that the restriction on the top was very powerful." Thunderstorm said, "It was easy, really easy. I have to thank Buddha." "Thank you." Lei Xingfeng suddenly reacted. He said, "True body." Thunderstorm said, "Yes, using the true body to barge in. It seems that this is the key. We couldn't enter before because we didn't have a strong true body. Now that we have a true body, it is easy to enter." Lei Xingfeng said, "Is there lightning plasma inside?" Thunderstorm said, "No, there is no lightning plasma." Lei Xingfeng suddenly showed a disappointed expression. Thunderstorm suddenly laughed. "Although there's no lightning plasma, there is a large lightning crystal." Are you surprised? Lei Xingfeng was very familiar with lightning materials. He said in surprise, "Large lightning crystal? It is comparable to the hexagonal crystal or the sky evolution crystal." Thunderstorm said, "It is much stronger than the hexagonal crystal. Of course, this refers to the lightning element. It is special. This is a special lightning crystal for us. I went to 4 or 5 stone rooms and found many large lightning crystals." As he spoke, he took out a large lightning crystal. With just a glance, Lei Xingfeng fell in love with it. It was a dark blue crystal, as thick as a thumb, about 2 inches long and octahedral. When he held it in his hand, he felt a numbing sensation. When he used a bit of his lightning energy, he found that a huge amount of lightning energy entered his body. It was extremely pure, to the point that his Lei Yin was constantly jumping. Good stuff. Lei Xingfeng couldn't help but praise. Thunderstorm gave Lei Xingfeng a batch of big thunder crystals and said, "There are more in the other stone rooms. I haven't had the time to collect them yet." Lei Xingfeng smiled and said, "It's okay. I'll go collect them when I have time. No one should be able to enter that place." Jean Dia and the others looked on enviously. An intermediate level cultivation technique, and one that was exclusive to the lightning element. This was too shocking. Jean Dia smiled and said, "Congratulations, old master." Thunderstorm looked at Jean Dia and was immediately stunned. He then looked at them one by one. After a while, he said, How? How is this possible?" He knew Jean Dia's situation. How could he become a monarch? Lei Xingfeng smiled and said, "It's nothing special. I just used a 10,000-year spirit liquid." Thunderstorm was shocked and said, "The 10,000-year spirit liquid is so powerful?" Lei Xingfeng said, "I didn't expect it to be so powerful." He looked Uncle Jean, Uncle Ing, and the others all advanced. Lei Xingyao couldn't take it and said, "Ai, you underestimate our family, Shaoling. This is all thanks to her." Lei Xingfeng said, "A spiritual item. When we were back home, we never heard of it. Only when we came here did we know of such a heaven-defying treasure." Thunderstorm said, "Then what would happen if we used it?" Lei Xingfeng said, "The founder used the 10,000-year spirit liquid. Didn't you know?" Lei Bao really didn't notice this detail. He shook his head and said, "I knew he obtained the 10,000-year spirit liquid, but I didn't know it had such a great effect." "Oh, I understand. It's because he succeeded that you gave it to old Jean and the others?" Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, "It's always good to try, but I didn't expect it to be so easy to advance. Uncle Jean will be much better after this. At least you won't have to rely on Yin rings anymore." Jean Dia sighed and said, "Even if I use Yin rings, I won't be able to last much longer. My usage went from a few Yin rings at the beginning to over 100 Yin rings in a year. I'll have to use one every few days. If I wait until I use one a day, I'll be done for." Mad Eagle smiled and said, "In a few decades, we'll be done for. Fortunately, we advanced. Otherwise, we'd be fighting for our lives. They had all relied on the support of their rings to forcefully cultivate their way up. When they reached ninth ring, True Lord, they discovered that they had no more potential. They would be stuck at the threshold of True Lord until they died. There was no hope at all. However, a single vial of 10,000-year spirit liquid changed their lives and forcefully pushed their cultivation to True Lord. Lei Xingfeng played with the large thunder crystal. It was very comfortable to hold in his hand. After thinking for a while, he released the sword seal. After thinking for a while, he tried to insert the large thunder crystal into the sword seal. In the end, before the large thunder crystal could be inserted into the sword seal, Lei Yin jumped out on its own and spun around his hand, emitting strands of lightning. It looked like it couldn't wait any longer. Everyone laughed when they saw this. Lei Yin said, "Wow, big brother, your Lei Yin seems to be hungry." Lei Xingfeng let go, and the large thunder crystal fell. Lei Yin suddenly flashed with lightning and swallowed the large thunder crystal in an instant. Thunderstorm said, "Your Lei Yin is really different. It can even swallow on its own." His Lei Yin was different. It needed to go through his cultivation before it could gradually absorb large thunder crystals. He tried before and found that his Lei Yin could absorb about 8 large thunder crystals. Lei Xingfeng smiled and took out a few large thunder crystals. Then he saw Lei Yin automatically swallow them. In just a moment, Lei Xingfeng's Lei Yin had swallowed more than 50 large thunder crystals. Thunderstorm was dumbfounded. He knew that the more large thunder crystals Lei Yin swallowed, the stronger its master, Lei Xingfeng. His own Lei Yin could barely absorb 8 large thunder crystals before it couldn't continue. He didn't expect Lei Xingfeng's Lei Yin to be so abnormal. Thunderstorm simply gave Lei Xingfeng some large thunder crystals and said, "When I collect all the large thunder crystals in the stone room, I will give you more. These things are very good. They should be stronger than thunder liquid plasma." Lei Xingfeng said, "That's for sure. If the restriction uses large thunder crystals as the core, I estimate that it will be several times stronger than thunder liquid plasma." Thunderstorm smiled and said, "More than that. As for how many times, I don't know." Jingzia walked out and said, "Give me 2 large thunder crystals." Lei Xingfeng said in surprise, "You have already exchanged for hexagonal crystals. Why do you want large thunder crystals?" Jingzia said, "They could display lightning attack power. The other crystals can only keep me full of physical strength and vitality, but they can't increase my attack power." Lei Xingfeng gave her 5 large thunder crystals without hesitation. The increase in Jingzia's strength was the increase in his strength, so he was never stingy in this matter. Jingzia's cold face softened a little. It was extremely difficult to make her smile. After putting away the large thunder crystals, Jingzia turned around and returned to her room. Lei Xingfeng would also give her a copy of the information he obtained. Therefore, when she had time, she carefully read and analyzed all kinds of information. She knew much more than Lei Xingfeng. Immediately, Jean Daya and the others also stretched out their hands. Lei Xingfeng didn't know whether to laugh or cry and said, "You are not lightning cultivators. What do you want large thunder crystals for?" Jean Daya chuckled. "Since we've already become true monarchs, we can lay down some simple restrictions. But what's a headache is that we don't have any good activation crystals. Since you have so many big lightning crystals, just give us some." Lei Xingfeng said with a smile. Okay. Yi, you have to continue looking for other large thunder crystals. Otherwise, there won't be enough." Lei Bao was able to obtain over 1,000 great thunder crystals in a single stone chamber. These great thunder crystals were crystallized from the accumulation of thunder and lightning. As long as the stone chamber was still there, and the restriction that produced the great thunder crystals was still there, after a few years, more would be produced. "It's fine. Just give it to us. Although this thing is precious, there are still a lot of them. Even we use a lot of them." The black bird suddenly swooped down and landed on Lei Xingfeng's shoulder, repeatedly saying, "There's also a bird. There's also a bird." Lei Xingfeng said, "Why are you joining in the fun?" The blackbird was unconvinced and shouted, "They are not lightning cultivators. What do they want large thunder crystals for? The bird is the one who really needs them. The bird wants them." Lei Xingfeng had no choice but to take out some large thunder crystals and distribute them to everyone. At the same time, he also threw a few large thunder crystals to the blackbird, which swallowed them in one gulp. Basically, everyone was given a dozen or so big thunder crystals. These things were useless to them, and a dozen or so were enough for them. Basically, they planned to use them on the restrictions. Of course, the blackbird was an exception. That guy directly ate them. 2 days later, Lei Xingfeng, Gao Yi, Lei Xingfeng, Wu Yang, and a blackbird returned to their original place. They didn't expect that the heavy rain was still there. The original stone platform had long been submerged. Moreover, the wooden shed that Lei Xingfeng built was also gone. There was water all around. Only a few tall trees were still exposed. The four of them hovered in the air, each one stunned. This rain was too heavy and had lasted for too long. Wu Yang said, "Let's continue flying. Perhaps we can leave the rain areas soon." Lei Xingfeng also didn't want to stay in this place. The four of them continued to fly forward. This time, they didn't send out the blackbird to scout the way because they believed that even if there were cultivators, they wouldn't be active in this weather. Lei Xingfeng had never seen rain like this before. It wasn't how heavy the rain was, but the duration and intensity of the rain. The rain didn't weaken at all. It had been almost 3 days, but the rain was still pouring down. It was as if the sky had opened a big hole and all the water in the sky poured down. Flying through the torrential rain was an arduous task. Everyone unleashed their own defenses to keep the rain at bay. They didn't dare to fly high, so they flew forward close to the surface of the water. The blackbird was lazy. It clung to Lei Xingfeng's collar and let Lei Xingfeng carry it. In this kind of heavy rain, it felt that flying was too strenuous. Chapter 531. After flying for half a day, they couldn't even find a foothold. Other than a few tree crowns above the water, there was no place to set foot. Lei Xingfeng said, "Ancestor, the rain won't stop. Should we go back and wait?" Wu Yang said, "Don't wait. God knows when it will stop. Let's work harder and fly out." Lei Xingfeng thought about it and said, "Okay, let's fly faster. I can't stand such heavy rain." The four of them sped up. Because of the low visibility, even if they sped up, they still couldn't fly as fast as if it was a sunny day. They flew for 3 days. Every day, they would return to the mirror realm to rest and continue the next day. After flying for 3 days, the rain finally weakened. Lei Xingfeng looked back and said, "If people lived here, they would be trapped to death. Other than fish, very few animals can survive here." On the 7th day, Lei Xingfeng and the others finally flew out of the rainstorm area. Then they saw the terrain gradually rising and the ground gradually showing. In a moment, the four of them and the bird flew over a forest. Lei Xingfeng sighed and said, "We're finally out. I feel like I'm going to mold." Blackbird said, Yes, the bird is going to be unlucky." Lei Xingfeng said, "You deserve it. I told you to stay in the mirror realm, but you insisted on coming out." Blackbird said, Don't think the bird doesn't know. If you put the bird in the mirror realm, you'll forget it quickly. It's the most unreliable." Lei Xingfeng often did this. He originally promised, but when he didn't see it when he left, he might forget. Blackbird didn't have the ability to leave the mirror realm by itself. So once Lei Xingfeng forgot, it could only curse in the mirror realm. But Lei Xingfeng couldn't hear it. No matter how much it cursed, it was useless. Lei Xingyao laughed and said, "Bird beaut, Big Brother always keeps his word." Blackbird said angrily, "That's to you, not to the bird." It was very angry about this. As long as Lei Xingfeng promised Lei Xingyao, he would always remember it. But Blackbird wasn't so sure. Many times, Lei Xingfeng would naturally forget, making Blackbird depressed. Lei Xingfeng comforted it. Okay, I'll remember it in the future." Blackbird hurriedly said, "I'll keep my word." Lei Xingfeng said, "I'll keep my word." Blackbird said angrily, "Don't he? When I hear it, I feel that it's not sincere." You can't brush me off. Xian Feng glared at him. Are you trying to take advantage of me? The black bird immediately withered and said listlessly, This bird knew it. I know. I'll keep my word. Lei Xingyao Lei Xingyao, Lei XYY. Lei Xingfeng said, It's up to you to believe it or not. If you don't believe it, then forget it. Gao Yi looked at Blackbird and said, Poor bird Bud, I sympathize with you. Blackbird wanted to cry, but had no tears. After a while, he raised his little head and said, When the bird's strength rises to the same level as you, you'll keep your word. He wasn't stupid at all. He knew that only when one's status and strength matched, he could attract people's attention. Under Lei Xingfeng's influence, he now knew the importance of strength. Wu Yang couldn't help but praise. Even the bird knows to be strong. Lei Xingfeng said, Every day he listens to us, of course he knows. If he doesn't have strength, then he'll just wait for others to destroy him. Lei Xingfeng continued to look for all kinds of resources. This was a big forest. The most abundant things were spirit herbs and spirit plants. With Lei Xingfeng's eyes, he could easily find all kinds of good things, especially when the treasure light couldn't even be blocked by the trees. It was usually very precious spirit herbs and spirit plants. Therefore, the journey slowed down. Lei Xingfeng would occasionally bring Lei Xingyao into the forest to pick all kinds of precious herbs. Lei Xingyao's eyes were opened. She didn't think that Lei Xingfeng could so accurately determine the location of spirit herbs, succeeding a few times. She liked to shout and shout. Even Lin Ling was surprised. To Lin Ling, spirit herbs and spirit plants were the foundation of her strength. The more spirit herbs and spirit plants, or other spirit items, the stronger Lin Ling's strength would be. Therefore, if she relied on her own strength, she wouldn't be able to get so many resources. But with Lei Xingyao, it meant that she would grow faster. For the next few days, Lin Ling was simply overjoyed. Large amounts of spirit herbs and spirit plants made her weak body start to become stronger. While absorbing the power of the spirit herbs, Lin Ling also had the ability to process the spirit herbs once and then instruct Lei Xingyao to collect them. The spirit herbs processed by Lin Ling had better medicinal effects, and they could be stored for a longer time than those processed by wood element cultivators. Wu Yang and Gao Yi didn't have a trace of impatience. Every time Lei Xingfeng brought Lei Xingyao into the forest, they would wait quietly on the treetops until the two flew up again, and then continue flying. Lei Xingfeng only chose spirit herbs and spirit plants with strong treasure light, and gave up on the weaker ones. He didn't have much time to stay in this forest. After all, they were still on their way. Just when Lei Xingfeng and Lei Xingyao flew down again, Wu Yang and Gao Yi landed on a branch of a huge tree and waited. At this moment, the two saw a light flying over from afar. Wu Yang said, Old Gao, go and form a foam. Be careful and hide. He could tell that the other party wasn't weak with one look. Although he wasn't afraid, he still had to try his best to avoid face-to-face. That light flashed past about a few hundred meters to the left, and with a shio sound, Wu Yang could clearly see that it was a person who didn't seem to have noticed him and quickly disappeared into the horizon. After a while, Lei Xingfeng and the other two flew to Wu Yang's side. Lei Xingfeng asked, Who was it? Wu Yang said, I only saw a silhouette. It seemed to be using a sword seal to fly. Its speed was very fast, and it flew over in an instant. This person's strength isn't weak. Lei Xingfeng said, In other words, we're starting to get close to the location of the local sects or schools. Wu Yang said, That's right, they're starting to be active practitioners. Gao Yi said, Right now, we're just like thieves. Fuck, this is too depressing. Right now, they didn't understand the situation, so they had to hide their tracks because they didn't know how the local practitioners would treat them, so they had to be careful. Lei Xingfeng couldn't help but shake his head. That's right, it's too depressing. Lei Xingyao didn't want to fight at all. She said, If we can avoid them, then we'll avoid them. We'll just find our own things. Why bother with them? Gao Yi said, The real good things have already been circled by the large sects and schools. If you go to collect them, you'll be surrounded and attacked by them. Lei Xingyao waved her small fist. Damn it! Our Xiaoling hasn't had enough yet. Lei Xingfeng looked at his little sister speechlessly. She didn't care about anything now. She only cared about Lin Ling. It was best to find more spirit herbs and spirit plants. Those were all Lin Ling's food. Gao Yi said, I think the real places that produce good things are either restricted or guarded by large amounts of people. If we go in, the consequences will be severe. Wu Yang nodded slightly. He said, let's avoid conflict for now. We'll first grasp the terrain, find uninhabited resources, and secretly develop the mirror world. This will take time. Lei Xingfeng said, and Machem, Uncle Gao is right, I think so too. The real good places should have been taken by those large sects and schools. Just like when we were in the mountains, the best mines are already taken. The reason we found so many mines was because they didn't care at all. Wu Yang nodded. This place is too rich. Lei Xingfeng said, we're like poor kids from a remote village. We can't compare to the people here. The few of them tried their best to guess, but they didn't understand without contact. In fact, everyone knew it very well, but they couldn't interact with the local cultivators at all. The people here were very strange. They were born with an arrogant attitude. When they saw people like Lei Xingfeng, they didn't have a good attitude. The people in the secret sects were also very arrogant. They were kings in their hometown, of course. They didn't respect the local cultivators, so it wasn't strange for them to have conflicts when they saw them. Lei Xingfeng said, how do we go? Wu Yang said, just keep walking. If we encounter people, try to avoid conflict. Gao Yi said, what if they don't want to let us go? Wu Yang wasn't someone to be trifled with. He said plainly, if they really want to make things difficult for us, then let's kill them. Who's afraid of who? Lei Xingfeng and Gao Yi both laughed. That's right. Who's afraid of who? Since they had entered outer space, they had already thrown caution to the wind. Some things, you can't just give in. You have to fight. If you can't, then you'll be done for. Lei Xingyao didn't say anything. She didn't like to fight, and she didn't need to. She just followed her brother. Her mission was to refine all kinds of medicine and find all kinds of spirit herbs. The blackbird said, since we're here, it's better for the bird to scout. Wu Yang nodded. Then we'll have to trouble the bird, Bud. His polite words immediately made the blackbird excited. It said, no trouble, no trouble. Birds like to scout. After saying that, it flew out. The four of them followed the blackbird and flew forward. Lei Xingfeng and Lei Xingyao temporarily stopped, looking for spirit herbs in the forest. After flying for a while, the trees on the ground began to decrease. The blackbird suddenly flew back. It said, there's a road ahead. There's someone. Wu Yang said, let's go down first. The four of them quickly landed on the ground. Lei Xingfeng asked, is it a small road or a big road? Who are they? Are they normal people or practitioners? The blackbird said, small road practitioners. The answer was very clear. Wu Yang said, how many people? The blackbird said, 3 people, walking very slowly. Gao Yi said, should we stop them and ask? Gao Yi said, it looks like there are more and more local cultivators. Blackbird said, bird, go scout the way and see if there are any cultivators in other places. As it spoke, it flapped its wings and flew away. It was a bird, a genuine bird, so it wouldn't attract any attention. It was absolutely safe to scout and investigate. No cultivator would make a move against a bird. Wu Yang said, let's rest here for a while and wait for Bud to come back. The four of them rested under a huge tree. Lei Xingfeng even took out a table. Each of them took out their own chairs and food, taking advantage of this opportunity to eat and rest. Lei Xingyao delicately ate snacks. Her food was all prepared by Jean Depan. They were all exquisite snacks, nuts, candied fruits, small baked cakes, all kinds of dried meat and dried fish, and all kinds of sweets. These were all girls' favorites. Wu Yang, Gao Yi, and Lei Xingfeng ate very roughly. Large pieces of braised meat and baked cakes tasted very good. Jean Depan's cooking had already reached a certain level. The food he made casually, even dry food tasted better than hot food. They chatted while eating. After waiting for about half an hour, The blackbird flew back and landed on the table. It said, "It's very strange, very strange. This bird can't understand." The four of them immediately focused their attention. Wu Yang said, "What do you mean you can't understand? What's strange?" The blackbird said, "There are many cultivators hiding in the forest. This bird has roughly checked. There are at least a few hundred of them. A few of them pose a great threat to this bird." Lei Xingfeng's first thought was an ambush. He took out the star python record and said, "Mark it here, including the terrain and people." The blackbird quickly gave out the mark. Wu Yang, Gao Yi, and Lei Xingfeng looked at each other. This was a very typical encirclement in the shape of a half-moon. Lei Xingfeng pointed at the gap and said, "Is there anyone here?" The blackbird said, "This bird didn't have time to check before coming back to report. This bird just felt strange. They're all sitting in the forest, as if waiting for something." Wu Yang judged, "It does look like an encirclement. Who are they waiting for?" Lei Xingfeng said, "It should have nothing to do with us." Gao Yi also nodded. "Coincidentally, we just happened to pass by here. Luckily, it was Bird Buddha who went to scout. We were discovered when we went." Lei Xingfeng said, "Bird Buddha, go to the gap and see if there are people lying in ambush." The blackbird nodded. "Okay, this bird will go again. Give me a reward." It took the opportunity to ask for benefits. Lei Xingfeng laughed. "Okay, your contribution today is not small." He took out a strip of star beast meat and said, "Eat it and go quickly." The blackbird swallowed it in one gulp and flew away. Lei Xanyao said, "Poor blackbird, one strip of star beast meat and it is satisfied." Lei Xingfeng laughed. Star beast meat is not easy to get. To the blackbird, this thing is a great supplement. He was not willing to eat it himself. He still had a portion of the star beast meat he got before. Wu Yang said, "This is a chance to understand the strength of the local practitioners. We can secretly watch without alerting them." Lei Xingfeng nodded. "It is indeed a good chance. Yao Yao, I will send you back to the mirror world." Lei Xianyao said, "Okay, I will go back." She also knew that she would drag the three of them down. She had no interest in fighting. After sending Lei Xianyao back to the mirror world, Lei Xingfeng came back. With the mirror world, it was very convenient. Wu Yang said, "When Bird Buddha comes back, we will find a place to hide." After a while, the blackbird flew down and said, "There are only a few people at the gap of the encirclement. This bird will mark them for you." After leaving a mark on the star python record, the blackbird jumped onto Lei Xingfeng's shoulder and said, "This bird is tired. Rest for a while." Lei Xingfeng said, "Don't worry, Bird Buddha. Is there a place to hide?" The blackbird pointed on the star python record and said, "Here, this place should be good. There are many giant rocks and many trees. If we hide here, no one will find us." Lei Xingfeng said, "Okay, you lead the way. Be careful not to alert them." The blackbird flew up and said, "Follow the bird." The three of them quickly put away the table and chairs and followed the blackbird. The blackbird flew in the forest. The three of them trekked in the forest. They did not dare to fly. After spending more than half an hour, they came to a pile of rocks. There were countless plants here covering the giant rocks. It was impossible to see anyone moving in the distance. After a while, Lei Xingfeng and the other two climbed onto a giant rock. There were several big trees next to the rock, covering the rock tightly. Through the gaps between the branches and leaves, one could see the endless canopy like undulating green waves. Lei Xingfeng climbed onto a big tree. He found a big branch and sat down. He said, "This place is very good. Let's watch the fun here." Wu Yang found a place to rest and sat down. Gao Yi climbed to a higher place. He smiled and said, "The view is wider here." The blackbird landed on Lei Xingfeng's shoulder and whispered, "The person closest to us is about a few hundred meters away. Speak softly." Lei Xingfeng was shocked. He hurriedly put his finger in front of his lips, indicating that everyone should be careful. After waiting for a few hours, Lei Xingfeng stood up from time to time. Suddenly, he saw a series of small black dots on the horizon. He said, "They're coming, they're coming." Wu Yang said, "I don't know who they are." Gao Yi said, "Anyway, it has nothing to do with us. Let's watch the fun first. Maybe we can understand the local situation." After a while, those small black dots rushed over. Seeing that the route just happened to enter the encirclement, Lei Xingfeng couldn't help but say, "If there's no traitor, I won't believe it. This route is too accurate." Gao Yi said, "Maybe they've already agreed on a place to meet? Maybe they're not enemies?" Lei Xingfeng said, "This encirclement posture is not very friendly." Wu Yang said, "Let's watch. If they fight, we'll watch the fun. If they're not enemies, we'll leave. This place is too close." The blackbird said, "They'll definitely fight." Lei Xingfeng said, "Why?" The blackbird said, "I saw them setting up the restriction." Lei Xingfeng couldn't help but be stunned. He said, "Why didn't you say just now that we're not in the restriction circle?" The blackbird said, "You really think I'm stupid? Of course, there's no restriction here." Lei Xingfeng touched the bird's head and said with a smile, "You're smart. Not a stupid bird." Soon, that group of people approached. Lei Xingfeng estimated a little and said, "There's at least 50 people. I wonder how strong they are. There should be a few hundred people lying in ambush below. There's a big difference in the number of people on both sides. If there's a super expert among them, it'll be fine. If there isn't, it'll be very difficult for these people to escape." The atmosphere became more and more tense. Lei Xingfeng, Wu Yang, and Gao Yi stared with wide eyes. The blackbird also stuck his head out and shook it. He muttered, "Caw, let's fight. I'm so excited. Caw, quick, let's fight." The originally tense atmosphere was immediately diluted by this guy's words. Lei Xingfeng said unhappily, "Shut up." His voice was very low. "You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.